Welcome to the TRXL podcast. I'm Evan TRXL, and in this episode, I welcome Martyn Day back to the podcast for what you might expect, another marathon conversation. Martyn is a co-founder and director of X3D Media, which publishes AEC Magazine and Develop3D, two of the most respected trade publications covering architecture, engineering, and construction technology, along with manufacturing. He's also the host of Next Build and Next Dev conferences, and he's been at this for 37 years, building a reputation for saying the things most people in the industry are thinking but won't say out loud. He's sharp, blunt, and genuinely curious about where all of this is heading, which makes him exactly the kind of guest I want to have on right now to talk about the state of the AEC industry and the tech that is shaping it. In this episode, we cover a lot of ground. We get into engineering automation tools that can generate a full MEP layout overnight, AI-written software that's already threatening CDEs and clash detection products, and the rise of open SDKs that are dismantling the moats that big vendors have spent decades building. We talk about what happens to Autodesk's business model when we hit peak named user licensing, why firms need to take their data seriously before someone else does it for them, and what it means when a company like Palantir decides AEC is worth owning. What we're all feeling that this conversation makes clear is the sheer simultaneity of it all. It's not one wave coming, it's a dozen waves at once, and Martyn compares it to watching an asteroid approach. The technologies are arriving faster than institutions, firms, or software vendors can adapt. The AIA's plan, the architecture firm's billable hour, the traditional software subscription model, they're all in the crosshairs at the same time from different directions. And yet, Martyn isn't just sounding the alarm. He maps out where the real opportunity is. Firms that own their data, train on it, and build bespoke tools with open SDKs are going to have advantages the big vendors can't replicate. The people in a firm who can break down a problem clearly enough for an AI to solve it are going to be worth their weight in gold, or as Martyn says, gold dust. He told me he's excited by the technology and worried about humans in equal measure. I feel the same way. As usual, there's an extensive amount of information in the show notes, so please be sure to check that out. You can find them directly in your podcast app if you're a paid supporter of TRXL Plus. That's just one of the perks. And if you're a free member, you can find them over at the website, which is, of course, TRXL.co. So, without further ado, I bring you my wide-ranging conversation about the state of AEC tech with Martyn Day.
I've been doing this for 37 years. I think now feels like the most incredible time in terms of development.
Super interesting
idea. Yeah. I think it's very hard. It's very hard to be a software supplier. It's very hard to be a customer. It's really hard to be a journalist because you can't keep up. I write something and then someone releases a new LLM on Monday, and
it's great for you, Martyn. It's great for you.
I have to write quicker. That's my problem. But I write
never-ending content stream. You just have to pick what to write about. Yeah.
I shouldn't complain.
Well, I think that's the intro to the show right there. I mean, that little quick history lesson. So you've been on the show before. I didn't look up when. It feels like maybe 3 years ago. I broke that long conversation up into 3 parts. I don't think I'm going to do that this time. I'm going to try to keep you on track. I've got 6 topics that I want to talk about with you today.
Okay. For this, I actually wrote some notes because it's kind of like, I'm so spread out. I feel like I'm so spread out in my little research topics that I'm losing track, and they all interact with each other. But it's definitely
interesting. Well, let's just start with a meta conversation about that. How do you keep track of the things that you want to write about, and kind of how do you control or make that connection between them? Like, how do you keep that story straight across those topics?
I'm a non-linear thinker, so I'm quite adept to taking lots of inputs, and then suddenly something, it might be in my sleep, but then I'll kind of wake up and go, oh, and then I'll go off and then connect 2 things together. And
you sound like an architect. Yeah.
I think it's ADHD. I don't know if that actually.
There you go.
My sister's a school teacher, and she's given me a late diagnosis at the age of 50. So I take in lots of signals. I look for signals. In fact, one of the first agents I wrote was to go out and scrape every week forums industry websites. I don't know how to do it LinkedIn because they're a bit weird about it. But and every week it kind of throws up. It'll throw up some things, and so it knows me. So it'll then say, "Hey, you wrote about this, this, and this. This actually impacts that." So I've now got a little friend that kind of helps me. But before I was kind of just talking to people. I talk to people all the time. Talk to the BIM 2.0 guys all the time. I talk to if something is particularly interesting, then I'll chase them down on LinkedIn and start having conversations. So things like Consigli getting bought for like a huge amount of money. Oh my God. I'm getting people contacting me going, oh my God, so much money, Consigli, wow. And then they give me bits of information, and then I'll see Andrew goes and gets 20 million for a startup, and I speak to them. And then so suddenly I've got Augmenta, who are obviously I've been talking to for a long time, Endra, who are new. I do a search and say what else is out there. Come across something called HVACer. This guy does a crazy video on LinkedIn. I message him. Really lovely guys. Have a really good chat with them. I'm doing next build. I say, why don't you come over? Hey, Andrew, come and speak. Hey, Augmenta, come and speak. And then someone else says, hey, have you seen that company? So I'll go and look at Branch 3D, and I'll talk to those guys. And then suddenly I invite them to next build, and we've got all of them there. So we can have a really interesting conversation about where engineering is going. And once I start looking into that then makes me think, all of these plan of works that the AIA has and REBA has, that's so old compared to what's coming, because these guys are going to be nailing a engineering solution either overnight or in real time.
Yeah,
how does that fit?
The pace of development of those frameworks that you're talking about is, I mean, you compare it to what's happening right now in software development, mostly around AI, right? You can't compare them. And so you're right. Like those look like sinking ships, not even just slow ships passing in the night.
Augmenta's taken a long time to get to where it is. And like, there's the whole kind of thing. Is it AI? Is it generative? I don't really care anymore. It's just, it's generative mainly, but AI is playing an increasingly bigger role in it. But Augmenta are only focusing on one country, the USA. They focused on one thing, which was electrical, and they spent a load of money and time getting that right. And now they're focusing on MEP, which was always their intention. And I saw a demo of that in December, and it blew me away. And they said, this is 12 months before we got a shipping product, but they're already throwing a Revit file. You get a MEP built into the Revit file. And that's the way.
So that shipping product is not going to be a bare bones basic product. It is going to be
it's going to
fully
do your
fledged,
building, and it will do electrical and MEP simultaneously. So you'll chuck it in for a solve. 7 hours later, you'll get both done, and then after that, they're going to do structural, and then you look at what Lucas Epp is doing with StructureCraft / Branch 3D. He's got a real-time FEA solver. So an architect moves the floor plate. That floor plate will automatically recalculate the FEA analysis, and then it will reposition the structural elements. So you have an immediate response to an architectural movement. And at the moment, that's not really geared, that industry is not geared up for that. It's not geared up to connect those people constantly, unless you're in a multidisciplinary firm where you have really tightly integrated folks. So just looking at this engineering conundrum that's going to hit the market. I mean, this stuff's, I think Branch 3D is already shipping, but obviously this is going to expand out over the next 12 to 18 months, and you're going to see engineering become a lot more automated, a lot quicker to get you feedback. And what the hell's that going to do to the market? You might have an architect still spending 18 months designing a building, but the engineering is going to be almost like press a button, here it comes. You're going to need somebody to sue. So there's going to be an engineer.
I'm gonna go through my topics in reverse order based on what you're talking about, because that's this kind of solver based stuff that we're seeing, right? It's like the architect I don't even know how to frame this anymore, because it is changing so drastically, and so it really kind of it revolves around the business model of architecture, billing money for time.
Oh, it destroys the architecture's business model. They have to rethink
so
it.
let's start there. Yeah. So and many people say that we have to rethink it. But like, what do you? So you're painting a picture of why, and so I mean, there's the why, but there's also the how or the what. Like, what does it look like? And this what's really interesting to me is that it actually gets back to the value of architectural design. It doesn't rely on the commoditization of this is how long it takes to do drawings and drawings are the output. It really points back to the idea of where the value lies in architecture. I would love to hear what you think about that.
First thing, the industry is being attacked from many different places. It's not being attacked by one thing. It's being attacked by automation in the traditional workflows that we have. But then you've got Solver, which is above automation. Solver is kind of like, here's the MEP for the building that you designed that's really bad, and I had to put all this MEP. The software said you had to put all this MEP in because the heat load on this building is crazy. So you've got that. You've got companies like Palantir coming in. Holy crap! I mean, for me, I can't stand the company. I find them despicable. But they've got an AEC division. And that AEC division doesn't care about all of the traditional software. Have got like locks on people. They're called moats is the kind of common thing. But
startup language, yes.
Yeah, RVT is a lock. ACC is a lock. DGN is a lock. All these kind of formats which kind of stop you from having ultimate freedom with your data. And Palantir are just going to go to a Skanska, embed themselves in a Skanska. They will own the layer between everything downstream and their business processes. They will learn everything that happens in a Skanska project. Everyone else suddenly just becomes piping to send information to the Palantir system. And Skanska will be incredibly efficient. What happens to construction managers when you have an AI layer that's removing risk, that's automatically removing risk, and it's automatically planning. Yeah, proactively looking ahead. Oh, this
like open claw for construction. Yes,
it's like GPS. It'll be looking forward, and so suddenly, where does that leave the existing players? None of them have AI development teams or the AI capability or the ontology. The Palantir, the word ontology is kind of if you don't know about it, it's essentially how everything works, the ontology of a process, how everything works, how everything is connected to one another. And if this changes, then the impact of that change, not just in a kind of like a Revit parametric thing, saying that geometry must change, it's kind of like this has happened, therefore this and this are all impacted by that timeline. Therefore, I will act, do whatever. So
and it's goal based. It's like it's not going to stop at what you would traditionally even think as solutions for those problems. It will find a way to solve the problem because that's
24/7, and it'll be working on your projects. And so we can all, depending on which kind of, it's almost like a Fibonacci series. It's kind of fractal, because we could all concentrate on, well, I'm an architect and I've got Revit and I'm using ACC and I've got issues there, but actually, go out. This onion, you can go to the outer onion skin and everything is being attacked by this. And that's why it's so hard to understand the impact of this, because everything's changing at once, or the technologies are changing at once. They haven't really impacted yet, but we're just kind of looking at this asteroid coming towards us, and we've got to try and work out what's going to survive in terms of the workflows, the technologies, the products, the institutions, REBA and AIA, have to get their act together and understand how these things are going to impact architectural practices. And how do you charge? How do you do bill by hour when you have automation and you have you have things being solved overnight that would take 3 or 4 months? How do you charge the customer? How do you keep track of that? I think there's a move with automation for drawings, automation for design, even that will make billable hours just be useless. So then you have to start thinking about what your value is and how you charge for your value. And by the way, the software companies are thinking exactly the same. They know we're near peak named user license, because from now on in, people are going to be using automation. They're going to be using smarts to reduce the number of seats that they need. And when that happens, then these guys are going, well, Autodesk, I'm a $7 billion company. I need to be a $10 billion company. Oh, I might have a problem trying to stay being a $7 billion company if this revolution impacts my software sales. Therefore, I need to do something, a new business model to keep bringing that money in and then grow into new areas. There is new opportunity for all software vendors as well, but essentially they're going to have to do it. So what I'm seeing is tokenization.
I was going to say tokens. Yeah.
Tokens are coming in.
Just like AI, everything running on tokens. Token exchange.
And this is kind of one of the fundamental things that was software has moved to the cloud or moving to the cloud. Right. Okay. Someone else's computer and you've got to pay for it. So not only are companies like Autodesk charging you for a subscription, let's say, let's imagine that Revit was on the cloud rather than it's on your desktop. But they're being charged by Amazon to run that instance and do that processing. They put a markup on it and then they pass it on to you. So they're making money not only from selling you the software or subscribing to the software. They're making money on you actually touching it or using it, because it's now hosted. Now, if you go out a little bit further and you start looking at APS and the whole idea of agentic approaches, they're now going to charge you tokens based on how many megabytes you access from ACC. So you're paying to subscribe to get the design software. You're getting to pay to have the stuff hosted with the services on ACC, which aren't insignificant. And then on top of that, you're paid to touch your data to then process it with an AI. That AI might also charge you for processing as well. It might be on your side of the firewall. So pay. It's got to be a bad thing. So that's why I think the net result of this is that large firms are looking to reshore their project data to have it in-house. If you have it in-house on your server, you don't have this kind of constant bleed of money, and you could develop an LLM on your data which doesn't have high token usage, which you're paying through the nose for. So I kind of think that firms need to start thinking about where their data is, how good their data is, can they centralize it, can they protect it, and then what is it that they want to extract from that, and have they got the in-house knowledge to do that? Or there are going to be new roles in firms where you're going to have someone with some kind of agentic AI approach. These people have to be structured in mind. A lot of firms don't hire programmers.
This episode is made possible with support from Avail. Is your firm managing architectural, landscape, interiors, and engineering content? Avail's all-in-one content management solution stretches across all disciplines, file types, and content locations, so production teams can find everything they need all in one place. Thanks to Avail's desktop application and Revit, AutoCAD, and Civil 3D plugins, teams can consistently find and reuse all types of content, from specifications and calculations to 3D models and plans. As a result, standards-compliant models and drawings are easier to create, the documentation process is less chaotic, new hires are easier to onboard, and projects are delivered faster with fewer errors. Visit getavail.com to request a demo. That's getavail.com to request a demo. My thanks to Avail for supporting this episode of the TRXL podcast. Now let's get back to the conversation. You have to think about data differently. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to even think about, like, you are then competing against these companies that you're talking about who are developing their in-house, and they're paying way more than architecture firms pay architects, for example.
Oh, yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
how much architecture firms pay data scientists, but it can't be anywhere, I can't imagine, competitive with a Palantir. I mean, not that
no.
you have to shoot that high, but
Well,
there's so many other.
even in an Autodesk or in any software firm. So some of my friends who've gone off from architecture to join software firms are amazed at the amount of money that software firms pay people.
Yeah.
You're an important person because there are very few of them, and they develop something that has a good margin on it, and there's a huge market to sell to. But there are, everything is going to change, and it's going to happen a lot quicker than I think people are looking at it in terms of in 18 months' time. Well, I'm getting calls from people who are programmers who are saying that AI programming is getting so good that they're going to be out of a job within a year. And if that's the case, that level of AI programmer is going to be available to every single AEC firm on the planet. And all it takes for you to do is to have, you need to be able to ask the right questions of the system to develop the product. This is the big problem, is understanding what your problem is and being able to explain it to the AI so it can give you a program. So,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of the programs are going to be ones that you see. So, right, you have an AI, you have hopefully someone who kind of has a structured mind and says, okay, we need to develop a CDE, we want it to do clash detection, we want it to do X, Y, and Z. So you specify it. Now, every time, if you just sit in front of Claude and say, write me a CDE and here's the spec, it's not necessarily going to write the same piece of code with the same stuff in it every single time. It will be unique. There's no framework. It's just off you go and whatever it does on its research at that moment in time, it will go and build it differently. This is why a lot of the I think that some of the most important firms in the next 5 to 10 years are going to be open SDKs. So that open company, Creox, ZeoKit, those things, they're out there and they're open source, they're free. And if you point or you tell your AI to use that SDK, you get common frameworks, common user interfaces, access to file formats that are standard like IFC. It's all built in. And so when a company develops something, they develop a product and then they develop a next product. They all have the same look and feel, and you kind of end up with creating your own software, but you have a standard, and that standard is these open frameworks. And these open frameworks are starting to crush data moats. I mean, things like CDEs are in real danger because that's going to be easy bread and butter for an AI to program. Clash detection is another one, which is another problem, which will be solved. Things like Celebri, I kind of have worries about because, model checking is another thing. If you can write rules, put your rules in the AI, then it can then put that in the program. So I think you're gonna find certain products. I've already had software firms reach out from that little thing I put on LinkedIn saying, I asked Claude, could you rewrite ACC in Open SDKs?
Right.
And it just went, whoop, and it kind of, last year it said it was difficult. This year it kind of said, yeah, I can do it, but there are certain things that it couldn't do. It could do 70%. And so software companies are coming to me going, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my product? There are going to be some low-hanging fruit that are going to be struggling, because if you really wanted to, you could have an AI write that for you specifically. And that will be from next year onwards. You're still going to have to understand managing code. You might have to have some idea about user interface and how you like it. Code has to be kept up to date to run on various standard software, and so there are some. It's not straightforward. You're still going to need to have some knowledge, but people like Foster and Partners have 30 or 40 computer programmers, And a lot of these other firms have got zero. They're relying on an architect who happens to have, studied Python because they're a big fan
Nights
of
and
Neil
weekends.
or something. Yeah,
Right.
it's like a
YouTube.
that person or those people in your firm who have that mind, they're going to be like gold dust, because not only are they going to be able to help with the grasshopper scripting or whatever you're doing, but that idea of breaking down a problem is going to be, and then explaining it is going to be essential in firms to create tools for the company, and they'll be saving a lot of money. And this is the other thing, is that firms will be able to start looking at their software estate and start deciding what's important to them. I don't think authoring tools are in any real danger. I think that BIM 2.0 and I think Revit and ArchiCAD, you're not going to be able to have AI write you a Revit. It's just not going to happen. But it will do CDEs, model checking, clash detection, those kind of things. But if there's an
plus the side of it that you talked about earlier, when you're talking about how you're synthesizing all of these, like it knows you, your tool that you use to do research knows you, and that's the other side of the coin that these firms have to develop. It's interesting to me to think about like this idea of like the billing structure, but there's also the phased structure of our projects and how they're linear, like conceptual design, schematic design, design development, and how compressed pieces of that get, for sure, depending on who's on the team, right? And who on the team could also mean these kinds of solver apps, right? So it's really interesting to think about, like you said, everything is going to change. So it's not just the tools that we're talking about. It's the way we do the work. It's how the time it takes to deliver the work. It's like the value of the work. It's so many layers deep. It's
just thinking about the one that I absolutely know is going to happen first, which is engineering, is how do architects work with the structural engineer, and what's the timeline between design and then giving it to the structural engineer and the structural engineer handing it back, and then the way that the
look at what Core
work.
Studio did with Asterisk years ago, right? And it was kind of too early. It was a big idea, a little too soon, and now they're on the verge of doing it again, and they're doing it to themselves because they know these solvers need to exist and they need to solve 80% of the problems so that they can work and focus on the really.
Why did AECOM buy Consigli for $360 to $90 million? I mean, that is insane. I had VCs ringing me up. I had software vendors ringing me up. No one could believe the price. And then software vendors were worried that suddenly they were going to be competing with their customers to buy AI startups. And that is going to be the case. I think Cowie are on record. Cowie, Skanska, AECOM. And I don't blame them, because AECOM, by looking at what was happening, they're going to be in competition with other people with automated systems. So that makes, that's the reason why Endra got a huge VC. They were turning money away, they told me. They were turning money away because they had so many people wanting to put money into Endra. And then you look at Augmenta, and they're growing. And Augmenta are the kind of secret giants because they've been working on this for a lot longer than anyone else. And they're a lot more holistic, and they're much more press a button and 7 hours later we've done something quick. Not only have they generated the electrical, they've done all the conduits, they've punched all the holes. The MEP is exactly the same. All the support structures in there to put and it's done it from the Revit model. And it's all happening outside of Revit. And this is the thing that's going to happen with BIM, is that BIM is this kind of thing where you kind of do some Lego modeling and you kind of like building this thing. Well, meanwhile, that data goes out because it can't do it inside of Revit. It needs to be in something more modern and AI friendly. And then it's being pumped back into Revit like a puppet just to create some drawings. And this is the future of BIM 1.0 is just going to become this kind of drawing conduit for geometry. And I don't know how long that will last for. I have I come across firms that are spending an inordinate amount of time and effort trying to perfect their BIM 1.0 platforms to really refine it. It's just like you're wasting your money. You are trying to refine something that's already dead. You have to start thinking about these tools that are coming out and how it's going to change the way you work. And I hope that you know I was concerned that a lot of the BIM 2.0 guys started too long ago for AI and the agentic future.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
I've in this issue of AEC that's just come out. Well, I asked them all, and I'm kind of okay with a lot of the answers that I got back from people in terms of what they're doing. I do think that they have a handle on it. I think Motif, being last to the party, are the ones that are probably going to benefit the most from it, because they were still deciding their tech stack kind of last year already for a lot of stuff. So I think they've got a handle on it. Conic have a handle on it. Snaptrude's already been demonstrating some very interesting conceptual design features, and I think he's kind of ahead in terms of delivering AI at the concept level. Arcol has tended to focus on really that one platform that it's got, but I know full well that Paul and the gang, their total focus is to replace Revit at some point in that kind of detailed design and drawing stuff. But the question's going to be is there really going to be one platform that does that in the future, or is it going to be specialist developers? Like there'll be specialist MEP and electrical, there'll be sort of like specialist facade, maybe auto drawings is coming along. There's now more people involved in that. So are you just going to have your model in whatever you've designed it and just throw it into whatever drawing service it is, and then you get all your drawings out, as opposed to having it in the monolith? It seems like a lot of at the moment it's still very file based. So that's another kind of problem, is all these files being sent everywhere. It's just they have to be in the cloud. It has to move to the cloud, but it has to happen in a way which I think the industry needs to recognize. They have to protect their data. They have to try and minimize the cost, and they don't want other people to train on their data. And I think that in-house is going to increase. I think people are seriously going to be looking at buying some big hardware, big server hardware in-house, as opposed to paying for every single thing online. But where ACC and kind of project hosting sites will win out is you're working on a collaborative project. So you have to put your data somewhere together. So, okay, ACC is maybe the place that you do that. But in terms of your archive and other things that you're working on, you really need to have that on your side of the fence with your own intelligence running on it. And because this stuff is going to be so low cost to develop, it's going to be free to develop. I wouldn't be surprised if architects start sharing applications that their AIs have written. So why reinvent the wheel? So here's a CDE, here's a crash detection thing we wrote. It works really well. Maybe there's a secondary market for that. But the very high end architects are totally rethinking their product mix and the way that workflows go, from simple sketching to so you sketch, you get some nice AR renders from the sketch, then you get a 3D model from the sketch, because that's now viable, and then you're in Rhino. Rhino is the one thing that seems to be consistent throughout. Everyone, it's so cheap for what it does, and it's so beloved. It's the product that no one said that they're going to remove from the thing, and then people are trying to work out how to get drawings, or if they're going to stick it into Revit, how few Revits they can get away with to produce those drawings, as opposed to having a Revit on every single desktop, so that you are using it primarily for an output of drawings of a model. I'm intrigued every time I talk to a company that's doing some internal research as to they all seem to be roughly heading in the same direction. and it's about hosting their own project information. And then that opens up, if you've got a server with all of your data in it, then you can run the application on your data. You don't need to put it in the cloud. So you can write your own agents. At the moment, I'm sort of talked to Greg Schluser a lot at HFK, and he really wants to have real time clash checking. He said that his I think he's been on his bugbear is that people work on a project all week, and on Friday they do a clash tech, and the clash detection goes, this is screwed up, and that's then wasted a whole load of work. Why isn't that happening in real time so that it doesn't?
Why isn't there a clash detection recommendation engine that's working alongside you like an agent would, right?
And you can't really do it in Revit because Revit is single threaded, and he told me that every time you need to save something out, then it's obviously got to pause and then output that object and then move on, and then I'm hoping that we're going to have these real-time systems demonstrated soon, so you can see the benefit of having your data local and these kind of agents constantly running over it with no real huge token cost to then give you immediate feedback and flag things up as they go along. But everything at that point, downstream, the same kind of agents running, you're de-risking the whole process.
Right.
Because you're checking drawings, right? You're checking models, you're checking everything.
That's worth something.
And then what happens to insurance? So if you've got these tools and you're not guaranteed, but you've got a high feeling that your data is always going to meet the quality, so maybe there's not going to be suing going on downstream, then without litigation, that's going to be obviously a benefit to the market. I mean, these project hosting sites should be trying to stop future legality. If they're hosting the project, they should be looking at all the data and immediately flagging up if there are anything missing. So when we get to the point of currently being sued, that's been handled before, so it smooths the process. And that's why another reason why I think kind of construction managers are very worried, because we're going to have these software applications of loving grace looking after the whole process.
Let's take a short break from the conversation to invite you to join the most influential technology leaders in the AEC industry at Confluence. Composed of in-person events and a podcast co-hosted by yours truly, Confluence is designed to foster conversations between AEC firms and technology companies so they can learn, share, and engage with each other to support industry innovation. Software company Avail, which creates content management solutions for the AEC industry, started hosting Confluence events in 2019 to understand what firms are needing, wanting, and thinking around technology. To learn more about Confluence, explore upcoming events, and listen to podcast episodes, go to confluence.getavail.com. My thanks to Confluence for supporting this episode of the TRXL podcast. And now, let's get back to the conversation. Well, let's talk about the people side of that equation, right? I mean, you're talking then about needing people who have tons of experience on projects, actually getting projects built, right? And so that to me is concerning from obviously there's like the technology layer, but then we've talked for years about those people walking out the door with all of that knowledge inside of their heads, and newer generations coming in without any of that because they haven't done it yet, right? And a lack of mentorship and things like that. So, I mean, how do you see firms dealing with that, and are they doing anything to address it?
Well, they're trying to capture it. So if you look at products like Victor, where if you've got anyone who writes any code in-house, then the idea by using Victor is that they give you all the tools to write the code, but they also store it, and then they produce it as a piece of code that the rest of the company can use. Hopefully you document it and it actually makes sense. So there's kind of knowledge capture a little bit going on now. Then AI is going to be able to reverse engineer some of that knowledge, or capture some of that knowledge. People like Palantir are definitely going to capture a lot of that project running information once they get really stuck in. So that's yeah. I don't.
It's tough because a lot of that information is exchanged just over conversations, or it's real time on the job site, or and it's not captured, and nobody does kind of that retrospective. Well, not nobody, right? But like going back and saying, well, what happened and why did we decide that? And like a lot of that stuff just falls through the cracks because it's never needed. It's never previously been needed. It was just one of those things we just did in real time.
Palantir gets enough information to go and kill people. I think they can kind of work out what is and isn't necessary in a project. I think it's going to be reading every single email. It's going to be looking at every single drawing. It's going to be
it'll be able
at
to
every
kind of
single
infer what's meant in a red line of a PDF kind of a thing.
Eventually, it will understand everything, and the more you train it, the more it's going to know. And I just don't think that there is much knowledge that can't be captured over time, and the more information you give it, the easier it is. And my deepest concern is for the next generation, because what's happening in legal it's definitely happened in engineering, but not because of AI, it's because of sheer stupidity, is if you don't keep recruiting people in and training people up, what will happen is what happened in engineering, like not building engineering, like engineering. I also run Develop3D Magazine and Develop3D Live, the show. I'd go to these events, which were all about engineering. I remember it was just be on the bus going back to the car in the car park, and there was this old guy there. We were just like chatting, and he just said, the average age in my company is 56. And I was like, wow. And he says, we're really worried that there's nobody below 35 who's actually worked on a project that has got a project done, completed, understands the whole thing. And he put it down to the fact that they didn't have apprenticeships for a long time. The government introduced some tax breaks. They took on some apprentices. Great. Then they took the tax breaks away. They got rid of the apprentices. And essentially what's happened is you've got a functioning being, which is the company, but everyone's aging out. And as they start aging out, if they haven't recruited at the bottom, then you've literally annihilated yourself. At some point, that business doesn't exist. Then you multiply that across all the engineering firms in the UK, and the average age is very high. So our engineering is in real problems. It doesn't matter how much money you shove at them. How are they going to find somebody now to want to go and study engineering as a course versus business studies, which is, engineering is a tough, you have to actually know your maths. And then once you get out, someone needs to put time into you to teach you everything. Then you have to accrue business knowledge to step up and in the company. This is it's a 20-year process. And how many firms have that mindset? And I think I see AI coming along. And in the legal profession, it's very hard to get hired now. They're not recruiting anywhere like they were, because the easy jobs are where AI is killing. And so you deploy it, you don't need to hire anyone. I make more money. Brilliant. So that goes on. The longer this goes on and the better the AI gets, the AI is going to creep its way further and further higher into the capabilities of lawyers and solicitors. And so you might actually start getting rid of real knowledge workers who've done stuff. But if you haven't recruited at the back end, your business is going to die. Not that I like Elon Musk and his views of I don't know what his view is, but he keeps thinking that white people are killing themselves. In businesses, if you do not continue to bring people in the base, your company
no future.
Has a finite life. And that will happen because of, the same reason why engineering firms offshored all their engineering to China. And so you might have someone who designs the product in Colorado, but it's actually all the real knowledge is in China for making it. And eventually, the Chinese are going to learn how to make really good products like cars. And so then you don't have the engineering base. And I mean, this is, there's not a lot of joined up thinking going into the next generation, and instead they're being mired in debt, encouraged to go whatever, even though if they're studying something it's not particularly super useful. And meanwhile their jobs have been offshored to China or are going to be AI automated out.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't know what to say to anyone's kids at this moment to go and study.
A trade.
Yeah,
A physical
a trade. I do. There are.
I laugh because it's true. It's just true.
That you don't know if the next kind of Calatrava, until they've actually gone through the process of studying that and then practiced. You can't tell which kid is going to be, the next big thing, and I'm horrified to think that we're going to end up discouraging greatness or the next greatness that we need. And AI in some ways it's almost like social media. It's just mind numbing because you can get into the part where you're not engaging with AI, you're just accepting the answers, and then that's your output. And I think as humans, as a species, we're a bit lazy when it comes to that. And I think that it's more of a danger than Facebook is to people's mentality. But I do hope that the people who do persevere and go through the process and think they're good enough can find a job in the industry in the future. We're definitely going to need more civil engineers, people who are physical and out there and learning how to build projects.
Right.
That's probably the biggest physical thing we can do.
Have you seen this website, Rent a Human? Rentahuman.ai, I think is what it's called, where AIs actually need a human to do something, take a photo of a thing or go deliver something to somebody, and you get paid $100 an hour. I mean, there's the future for the generations.
We'll be
to do the physical things the AIs need.
I'm excited by the technology, but I'm depressed by humans in our inevitability of, and in some way, it really confuses me that a lot of people who are selling this future are billionaires, and I think Musk said that we'd all be millionaires in the future. I don't think so. Capitalism fails basically when AI and robots are doing everything. I think it's been said a number of times. It took 100 years for the Industrial Revolution to sweep through. This thing's going to hit us, and it's going to be a 10-year process, and we're just not ready. I think half of jobs in America are driving or related to driving. So if Musk gets his way and you flick a switch and suddenly everything becomes automated, where are they going to do? How do they retrain? And then you go to Amazon, and Amazon's going to replace the people in the pick and choose things with robots. What are they going to do? There's not a holistic approach by any government to fully understand what we're going to put ourselves through. And as a technologist, I'm kind of excited, but as a human, I'm deeply worried.
Well, yeah, there's like that day-to-day kind of excitement of development cycles and how quickly, and then there's like you step back and look at the bigger picture. And I think like this happens on many levels. Like you're talking about it government-wide, you're talking about it organizational, like AIA, REBA level, and then there's firms, and it's like all of those organizational levels have to be doing that all the time now, right? It's like a new model comes out, all the time. A new function comes out all the time, and it's like the companies that are moving at this pace are constantly reevaluating where they're going. They're not just saying this is how we do things, this is how we've always done things. That doesn't exist in these companies that we're talking about, but that exists in our industry to the deepest root, right? And this idea of creating a place where people want to be in the future doing this kind of work, I don't like, you have to step back and you have to look at that holistically. Like, where are we going to be? How are we going to get there? Who is going to be a part of that? And create, because architecture firms did never ever have to use, they never had to think about this. There were people lined up at the door. There were graduates lined up at the door of architecture firms because they got a degree in architecture.
Yeah.
Now that degree in architecture can serve so many different functions. Architecture firms are competing against technology firms and all kinds of other things for those candidates. And they may not be feeling it right this moment, but this is like the near-term future that I see, right? Especially on the coasts, especially in the urban areas where that's where the technology companies are too, right? And so you might be a little more protected if you were in the Midwest, but it's going to ripple through everywhere.
So I don't know if it's the same in the States, but over here, a lot of your traditional run-of-the-mill architecture practices will give away the design. So they want to win the job.
Yep.
So they'll design pretty much right up until detailed design. In a year or two, the systems that will be available will be able to literally leap from a concept design to level 350 and a press of a button. So at the moment, people are kind of going up just before the real work starts, and just to get the job, and so they're kind of punting time and energy on that. But what happens when you're up against a company that's using? They don't really care about they want to win the business, but maybe they're charging based on the value of the building, and they're not going to charge you billable hours. And they've refined their process to the point where they produce a pretty nice looking building, all the renders and stuff, but they've already done the level 350 drawings by pressing a button. And so when the customer goes, yeah, do it. Okay, wait 2 months, and they say, here are your drawings, here's the business, pay us the money. Or, if they're going to manage the site, then pay us the money. But the business models that exist today will come under pressure from some firms that run with this stuff. And the question is, will it devalue the designs? I think there is a physical limitation as to how quickly a client can understand a design. And so you might have a client you win a competitive bid. The client goes, okay, build the building. The next thing is, the guy's changed his mind. He wants an atrium. We've already ordered the steel. I mean, this is like the future. We've designed it. We've given you the drawings. You've okayed it. We've started ordering stuff. The client might need 6 months to a year to really fully seep themselves in your design, to go, yeah, this is great, or we held a meeting and we think that this should look like this, and this. So maybe there is a physical limitation to how quickly clients can fully appreciate what it is they're going to sign off on. And if AI swans in, and within a month and a half you've got everything to level 350 and it's required a small team of 10, what role does the client have?
Hey everyone, I want to take 30 seconds to talk about something that really matters to me. This podcast exists because I believe this industry deserves better conversations. No agenda, no corporate backing, just honest, in-depth dialogue with the people actually shaping where AEC is headed. More than 25,000 of you listen to this show, and less than 50 of you are direct supporters of what I'm doing. And I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty. I'm saying it because if this kind of independent media matters to you, if these conversations have ever changed how you think or introduced you to someone worth knowing, then the most direct way to keep it going is to become a TRXL Plus member. $12 a month, ad-free episodes, the full Leadership Edge newsletter with my deep dives and the things I don't say on the podcast, and the knowledge that you're one of the people making this possible. Head over to the website at trxl.co and click the join button. And either way, I'm really glad that you're here. Now let's get back to today's conversation. Well, okay, so yeah, let's talk about that. because that small team nimbleness and maybe tech savviness that because you can assemble this team today, right?
Yeah.
And compete against these largest firms out there with an entirely different tech stack mentality, way about approach, billing structure, the way you can kind of spin that up like a startup gets spun up and to test a market fit for a product. I mean, that's basically what you're talking about. And why shouldn't architecture firms and engineering firms operate
it will
like
happen. There is going to be commoditization of bread and butter designs, office blocks.
Sure.
Maybe not a hospital, but again, like student buildings. Those kind of things are going to end up. You already got it. So with
Yep.
Hierarch, I love Hierarch. I love what they do, but the idea and what you're seeing there is a expert system, and I truly believe we're going to end up with expert systems for designing very specific building types, and they will be incredibly rapid and incredibly autonomous in generating those designs. The problem is that even for fostering partners, 50% their bread and butter is probably buildings that no one knows anything about, but they've been commissioned to do because they're fostering partners. So I think
if they don't talk about them. Yeah.
No, there's no name on them. It's just and those are the kind of buildings that are going to be in danger, and that threatens the size. I don't think it threatens the companies themselves, but I think it threatens the size of those
It doesn't
firms.
threaten their brand, right? Their brand is not built on their size and their absolutely. It's something else, but it won't continue to need to be that big to do what it does.
There'll be more boutique, and I think you've got the really large firms, the HOKs, the SOMs, KPFs. They're going to be under threat because a lot of what they do is bread and butter. If they've got niches like hospitals or labs or something like that, then I think they're going to develop their own kind of hierarchs for designing those buildings, because if they know, these people know what the problems are with those styles of building. Autodesk doesn't know, and with the ability now to have bespoke applications written for them, then they're going to and there's enough open SDKs, and there are things like iTwin Studio with Bentley, and then it's the potential for them to develop their own BIM applications. I'll call it BIM. Yeah, when I say BIM, it's so loaded as to thinking about what it was, but their own design applications, I think, is huge. And then but then you've got very unique firms. You've got firms that are highly specialized, and that's the company you go to for hospitals, and that's the company you go to for student accommodation. And I think niches need to be carved, and it'll be a bun fight. But also, there's this whole capitalism thing hanging over us, how profitable they are. They're going to be trying to be as profitable as possible. They're going to try and curtail design time and people and software as much as possible, and they need to work out what their rewards are going to be if they can't really do billable hours. What's the accepted new way of working out what that is? And it's going to be the same for the software companies. So there's an article coming out, which should be out by the time this goes out, which is all about AI and the agentic feature of BIM. Well, I spoke to Andrew Allingnos, and he said, we understand things are going to change, and we probably need tokenization is one of the things, but then maybe we start charging a fee per project. Maybe there's a slice of that kind of project fee that goes to pay for the technology partner providing the technology, as opposed to named user licenses or whatever. It probably could be a combination of those. So everybody's trying to rework what this is. I mean, Autodesk took 10 years to kind of like refine Autodesk SaaS, and then suddenly AI comes out, and then everybody's share price gets whacked because that's old software. SaaS is dead. It's every single part of the the business landscape is being changed by this. It's share price. It's how you pay for software. It's how fast you design, how you charge your client, what software you do buy, what software you do develop. If you pay to have your data hosted online, or if you pay to have
Who
it
you hire.
in-house. Yeah,
what are the roles? How do you do your contracts? Yeah, everything.
So every single practice should be trying to understand what the dynamic is and start making 5-year plans, 3-year plans even, so that they can kind of understand. I said 5 years. And I was like, well, so
that's the old number, Martyn.
That's so then the other thing is that in 2028, 2029, I think Autodesk's 2-for-1 deal runs out. So 8 years ago, if I was in 2028, so in 2020, they gave people 2 seats for 1 if they moved to subscription for 8 years. So that's one thing on the horizon. And then I think also there are some people who are running some very low cost copies of AEC collections because they're historic and they got special deal for upgrading. That at the same time also gets nixed. So there's a kind of we're heading towards a brick wall in our traditional world, and I wouldn't be surprised if Autodesk has some kind of offers coming out, maybe to try and help with that, because it would be 100% price increase if it's 2-for-1 and you've got double the amount of software. Most people after 8 years are probably using all of those seats, and maybe the manager, the BIM manager, doesn't know the deal was done 8 years ago. So I think it was called M2S. I can't remember what the exact term was, but so on top of all of this stuff that's happening in the next 2 years, there's a wall ahead where firms, I think all the firms I've talked to are saying, yeah, we will have to decide what we cut, what we keep and what we cut. But that's,
well, by then the new authoring platforms will be more mature, at least. but then you have an uptake cost of like what we already know versus what we have to learn, right? And I mean, maybe that's where AI plays a part as well, and these agents, right? Is just getting people up to
unless
speed faster.
Autodesk does something very clever, what people are using now isn't going to be the future, because file formats, RVT, all that stuff eventually goes away because it's going to be in the cloud. And the question is it going to be Forma, or are they going to take Revit and refactor it? I don't know what the score is with Autodesk anymore in terms of their plans for that. But you've got Snapshot, Conic, Arcol, Motif,
Giraffe, Test Fit,
they're kind of still more the front end. I think the Snapshot, Arcol, Conic.
They're going for BIM 2.0.
Most of them were trying to replace the Revit stack from concept to drawings. And I think over time, and maybe the drawings thing isn't so important anymore. Maybe that's because it's going to go for automation. So maybe that's a automated service in the cloud from your model in the future. So I'm not seeing a lot of effort put into that. I'm seeing a lot of effort now being put into detail design. But on top of that, there's going to be an agentic layer, which is going to be sat inside these platforms, running all the time on your data as you enter it, and it'll be a different ball game to just creating a family of parts and then creating some geometry.
So, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, and you made the comment that Autodesk doesn't know kind of the nuance of hospital design, as an example. But don't you think there's a threat of them learning what those nuances are by a tool like what you're talking about right now, an agent running on top of this stuff all the time, in the cloud, right? Where all of these models are coming together and it's watching changes and how, like it knows your docs as well. Like, so it's got your meeting minutes in there and it knows the reasoning behind and what's tied to what. And I could see, I'm just curious what you think about that kind of potential threat there as well. And I don't know if they want to compete with architects. I don't know, but it seems like they could learn a lot really quickly with all that data.
Given Autodesk's stance on non-compliance, I think that they'd be a bit amiss if they didn't comply with their own terms and use, which would they have to have explicit permission from customers to train on the data, and it's very hard to prove not. The only thing that pisses me off is that Autodesk keeps saying, we've got all the data, we've got all the data.
They do. Like, they say that. And I believe when they announced Autodesk AI, they even talked about it being like opt out, like it was automatically opt in. I could be wrong about that, but it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, this just seems like a gray area. And so they're going to capitalize on it as long as they can.
It is a gray area. But the thing is that a lot of the data that they've got is not great, because those models aren't super accurate. You really need to have a really, really good Revit user to make sure that you've got some great data to train off. If you stop putting crap in, then you're going to end up with a useless one. So, they've got all the data.
That's an argument for keep making crap models, architects.
Yeah, just throw a whole lot of rubbish in.
Just get it over the finish line, people.
So I think there's this. I think that Autodesk has to comply with its customers. I think that they do desperately want to train on that data. They're telling the markets that they've got all the data because that's part of the AI play. They're also saying that most of their sales are based on the fact of all the great AI they've delivered, which they haven't. So I kind of think that the Wall Street gets one version of it, but we have to look at the reality. And they haven't really developed a lot of AI yet. They haven't. There's no huge changes for people at the moment. It's coming, but they've definitely not delivered it. This is another reason why I think. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Siri. I go from Claude to Siri, and all I can do is set a timer for cooking on Siri. Yeah. I think that's the only thing I use. Set my alarm. Set an alarm. God, I just realised I said Siri, set an alarm. So did go ding. So, yeah, I think there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to get worked out. I think customers are better off training on their own data, and cleaning up their data. That's the important thing. Is not only bringing it in house, but also cleaning it and realizing that their data has great value and it will have great value for the future. And also start running agents over them to find the problems that were in past projects. That's really useful information to know. Historic failures as opposed to help iron them out in the future. Right. But I think there is a big problem in the whole data world, and I don't think many practices fully understand what they can extract from the data. It's too easy to rely on a large vendor to do these sort of things when in fact they will capture all of the information. It is possible that in the future, 20 years from now, Autodesk has fully understood every single aspect of the industry, and they actually, you say, I want a building, this is the land parcel, give me a building, give me the spec, and they'll design it. Why not? Because they have everything. And the model.
So that's my question. Do they actually want to compete with architects? I kind of don't think so. And I think about the AEC market of Autodesk, which is isn't it a pretty small world within the grander?
No, it's huge. For Autodesk, it's the number one. Their MCAD is so out of the 7 billion. It's very hard to work out because there's AutoCAD and LT, and they kind of weirdly allocate those to different divisions. But I think over 50% is AEC, and then you've got MCAD, and then you've got M&E. M&E is kind of dwindling. It's about 300-400 million. MCAD is over a billion. Hit,
I would imagine, with all the
M&E
development.
I scratch my head on what the future of M&E is, and they were, sell it. I don't know what's going to happen there. This is the thing with the whole Palantir thing is, your Autodesk, your Bentley, your Nemetschek. Do you do a deal with a Palantir or an OpenAI or a Google to superpower your products, your business offerings, because that seems to be like a quick way to get in. But if you don't, then Palantir are going to come in anyway, and they'll, once they're kind of king of the castle because they come above you, then suddenly everyone kowtows to that system. But then there's this whole ownership thing, the whole proprietariness of and moat structure, which, we might be swapping, we might be demolishing all of these lower down moats, but then suddenly Palantir turn up and they own the entire process, the whole business model of a company. They become such a important substrate for running that business that they can't be removed. And anything else that's underneath, what's stopping them Palantir buying an Autodesk or buying a Bentley and having a direct vertical channel? And there's in this article that there's huge questions about, even down to the kernel level, if because knowledge, and when you create an object in Revit, it doesn't really know what it is. It's just geometry with some metadata.
Right.
What happens if the wall, when you created the wall, had some AI to the point that it knew what it was and it knew the limitations of what could be built and physics and stuff? So maybe there's an argument that we need to go right down to the bottom level and say, you know what, we have to go to the kernel level and start having AI right from the get-go, so everything that gets made has some level of knowledge, has some intelligence, and then you have a totally different outcome from the BIM systems that we've used. Even BIM 2.0 doesn't really go to kind of sub-level. There's a great guy called Blake Corter who I knew him once, first time at PTC. He kind of helped write the Granite 3D modeling kernel, and I've had lots of chats with him, and he thinks that even geometric kernels need to be rewritten in the day of AI, so that the kernels understand what it is that they're making, so they can help, as opposed to just be dumb geometry. So that's quite a deep thing for a lot of people, because they probably don't understand how kernels work. But and kernels in AEC tend to be very dumb because it's like faceted geometry. They're very rarely solid models. If you heard of Bentley does parasolids, and Vectorworks do parasolids. Or the Revit has Space Maker, I think. So they got their own thing, which was ACES, which isn't really used for much inside of Revit. I think it's STL out. But maybe someone will come in at that lower level and start thinking about how we can make software tools that are intelligent from the atom up, as opposed to us formulating what a door is, what a window is.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about that, though, from like a design process standpoint, because a lot of times design starts ambiguously, right? It's like this represents space and there's no space object, right, in these tools that you're talking about. And so it's like containers of space and walls and ceilings and soffits and floors, and like a wall could also be a something else, and it's really ambiguous. And then at some point, I mean, that's why people love Rhino, right? It's because it's you're dealing with form. Like, you're not dealing with those level of specifics, but at some point you have to transition to that.
Well, it's this whole leap from conceptual massing to level 350. Let's say you start off with some blocks and you convert those blocks into walls. Okay. Now, it has an inherent knowledge of physics. It has an inherent knowledge of construction of walls. It will then realize which walls are supporting loads. So it'll then automatically detail the right place, structures to support that wall, the windows and the doors and stuff in that feature. And as you leap forward by pressing a button, all that detail appears. I mean, you're going to have. It's not impossible to have construction level information from the press of a button, because it will have inherent knowledge of structures. And I think kind of schema do it, but it's not really AI. They sit down with the architect and they say, okay, what kind of things do you build? Okay, they'll capture how they design their kind of like multi-occupancy housing projects.
Yeah.
And so that every time that you've done a massing model, you press a button, it'll leak forward and do all the detailed design for you.
Yeah, it takes like that catalog of spatial components and plugs them in like the Jello cubes, right?
And that again, that's kind of almost like a expert system, because they have to go in and program their expert system with how their customer is working, and you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of people trying to make, all the software companies I speak to are trying to compress parts of the monolithic BIM. They're trying to speed up drawing. They're trying to speed up massing to detail. They're trying to speed up detail modeling to fabrication. And they're coming up with all these different ideas. I don't know if any of them are going to stick, but they all have the potential to save huge amounts of time. And I think architects need to maybe learn a little bit more about offsite construction, or just construction, the actual physical, and about how that is represented within their model. And maybe they need to start thinking a little bit about workflow better, where saying, well, if I see the great thing about architects weren't super great at high quality drawings in CAD. You'd always have like lines that didn't meet, and that it was quality wasn't necessarily there. You jump up to 3D, and if you haven't got good quality in 2D, then it gets even worse. And then if you try and get auto drawings out of a not great model, or a model that you just say, I'll fix it in the drawings because I didn't know how to stop Revit from doing that automatic connection, and I don't really like the way that those walls join. That's a problem, because auto drawings really relies on your model being great. If your model's great, then your auto drawings are going to be great. And when I wrote about auto drawings, Michael from HiArc contacted me and said, we do great auto drawings. And I was like, well, yeah, you designed the model. There's no modeling involved in HiArc. It really is incredibly automated.
You didn't get the model built by an intern, right?
Yeah, it's level, it's 1-to-1. The whole thing's modeled at 1-to-1. So yeah, you get great auto drawings out, but everyone else, they're going to have trouble. But I think now with agentic layers, maybe constantly patrolling your model, making sure that it's correct, then you're going to end up with really good models. And
I was going to say that.
Then the next thing is to get that helps auto drawings. So a lot of these things are kind of stacked benefits. And I think that all this stuff we're seeing, it's so compelling, it's so exciting. And that's what to start where we started off, is when I see people trying to perfect their Revit by, I'm just like, this is really, I know it's current technology. I know it's going to be, probably for the next 5 years, it's going to be incredibly popular, the most popular way of probably doing BIM. But the leading firms are not stopping there. They think that Revit's a drawing tool. It's a thing to get drawings out of. And if automation comes into it, then that's gone. And they're more keen on Rhino. They're more keen on some of these AI tools that are coming out. The rendering tools, they're all over. And they're the ones that are looking at hosting their own project data in-house, doing their own AI, training their own AIs. I think a lot of them are building their own workflows, and so they'll build a workflow where they're routing stuff to go into AI applications that are in the cloud as they're modeling. So they might be modeling in Rhino, but automatically there are renders ready to go, because the modeling is being fed directly into these things. So productivity wise, it has huge potential, but you have to watch your tokens, because that's going to be the new bleed point, is an unmitigated, unfettered access to AI tools which require a payment for a large team is going to seriously start adding up. I was talking to Greg at HOK, and he said, they're spending like $10,000 a month on tokens, and he could quite easily see that doubling or tripling,
Sure.
based on their.
Well, it gets more useful.
The
The more you use it, it actually gets more useful and more. I hate to say addictive, but you know what I mean, right? It's like, well, yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to see, and there's a lot of experimentation that needs to be done to figure out how to work and the best way to use it. And you're going to get stuff that didn't work right, and you're going to have to try again and again and again.
And the real skill is having somebody who's AI cognizant to say that, okay, when you're doing this the first time around, your first iteration of this process, you're going to bleed tokens. But once you refine it, you're then going to, the most expensive thing you can have is like Opus 4.6, and that's really expensive to run. But once you've worked
you're going to come up with an instruction set and you swap it over to Sonnet 4.6,
you start farming it out. So that's how so that's the new thing, is kind of like spending a lot up front, and then over time working out ways to minimize your cost. And some of it reduces it almost not to zero, but really low, and working out which LLMs are best to do each task, because they're all changing all the time.
Which is another task, just managing that for somebody.
I've
figuring that out.
I've spent 30,000 tokens this year, just learning, and I've had some real fun and real pain. I mean, I've spent 5 hours nurturing this, trying to create this one thing, and it was my accountant's on to me saying, I need all your invoices. I go, oh god, this is a pain. I've just got to keep going to all these different sites every month. And I was like, so I'm going to write an AI agent. So I sat down with an AI agent, and we went, okay, right, we're going to go to this site, this site, this site, this site. I don't really want to give you my login details, so I'm going to, and all of them were two-part authorization. So I had to sit there with my phone when it wanted to get in there. So I was like, okay, here we go. And out of the 12 sites I wanted to go to, I could only get into 2. 10 of them immediately recognized it was a bot. One said, oh, your IP address is coming from Germany, and it's a well-known bot IP, goodbye. Then your cursor's moving too quickly in my browser. You are a bot, goodbye. And I was just running into this every time. And you kind of realize, well, all this scraping and all this stuff that these current agents are doing, they are bots. And we have spent 20 years developing internet protocols to farm these, to figure out, two-factor authorization, whatever, to try and stop this happening. And I was going against the grain.
And now it's going to be the main way you actually do things.
And now it's, if you haven't got a good API, and so this agent said, I was trying to get it to scrape Google Analytics. That shouldn't be too hard. For some reason, the API key that this thing kept getting would only allow it to look at YouTube videos. It wouldn't allow it to go into our account. And several times it was like delete, refresh the screen, get rid of all of the detritus from history. Okay, fine, did that. And then it kind of went, oh, hang on. The problem's at my end. I can't flush my own cache, and it's stuck in there, and I can't do anything. However, I cannot write anything cryptographic in my sandpit. Have you got Python? And I went, yeah, I've got Python on my computer. I went, right, okay. Let's write some code to get around my sandpit. And I was at this point
goal-oriented. Yeah, this is the goal-oriented thing. It's like it will figure out workarounds.
It will not give up. I had to go make coffee because I was like sat there with it then, and we created a script. Then it said, okay, create a Google Cloud account, put the script in the Google Cloud account. I can then poke it to then generate a key, and that will get me into after 5 hours it still completely failed, but it was relentless. It tried every which way it could to try and hack into Google Analytics because I told it to, which is kind of worrying because this is out there. This is what everyone's got. This thing will. It was writing code going to some other site, putting it in a debugger. I was watching it debug its own Python scripts, and it's a very if it couldn't do it through APIs, it's actually showing you the interface of the site it wants to go into. And if it can't get in there, it asks you to put in the password or the two-factor authority, and it goes in and it just does whatever it wants to do. And I was blown away by the intrepidness of it. It just didn't give up. It was highly fallible, but at the same point, these things are now out there and people are going to be using them. And it kind of gave me a bit of some security feelings that perhaps we're automating something which security-wise we're also not really prepared for. All it takes is one person in your company to be scripting agents and give it security access, password protection to emails or something, because it thinks because the person doing that thinks it's a great idea to automate a solution, and you've got an immediate security problem. Right. And the humans, as usual, are kind of the fallible part of this.
And you're going to pay for it, right? With token usage.
I emailed the company in the morning and said, I've been up all night with your computer trying to hack into Google, which I thought you might find interesting. We also spent 4,000 tokens in the process. They gave me the tokens back, apologized, and said, try again. I was like, oh, it's like, okay. There's something about this conversation they didn't quite understand. But I'm in this really weird place of being in awe of it all, but at the same point, every now and again something comes up which makes me flag up worries, and I want every design IT director, every BIM manager needs to read up on this. They need to, I wouldn't say use OpenClaw, try and find something else, but just learn about creating agents and an agentic feature, because it's coming. And there will be AEC agents that do exactly the same. Someone contacted me today saying that they were working on something like that. So it's got a chat interface, it'll write programs, it'll go in and scrape information from AEC destinations. Use with caution. But your legal department needs to know about what's involved in this.
And not just shut it down, right? Like, I think that's kind of an important distinction is they need to know, and it needs to be a dialogue about, because to your point, like, this is coming, and it's not like lock it down, we're never doing that. I think about this kind of internet thing, right? And I kind of see it splitting into two. I mean, this is not an original idea, but it's like there's going to be like the internet for computers and the internet for people, and those are going to be kind of two different things. And I think that you want to apply that thinking to these workflows and these processes and the access to data and the learning, the way that these agents can talk to each other behind the scenes and argue with each other and do all of this kind of thing while you're designing a project.
We haven't even discussed that. I mean, that we're talking about individual agents now, but there has to be rules and governance for multiple agents. So in the future, when you have automation, you're going to have, when you've got an agentic system, so these things are running constantly on your data, you'll have an MEP expert agent, you'll have a electrical expert, you'll have a AEC architectural expert, and all of them will need to work together to solve problems, because everything impacts anything. It comes down to that ontology argument about understanding not just the geometry and it's actually the process and how different things impact other parts of the design, and no one's come up with that yet. I mean, what we're seeing at the moment is very early agentic scrapers and going to get some information from here and some information from there, and then we'll try and mash it together and offer you some kind of insight. That's very hit and miss at the moment with Claude and with the tools I'm using. In terms of what you get out at the end of the day, you can get some very deep reports, and it's all based on assumptions. So you have to kind of question as well. It's overwhelming. Some of the reports you can get back and thinking, wow, it's so in depth and so. But yeah, there were some assumptions made on there. So it's all to do with how good your data is underneath and how clean it is. That if you got some information there that's not quite correct or not broken up very well, then it makes assumptions based on what it sees.
Sure.
And you'll have errors based on that. It's yeah.
You
I
can
would
do this now, right? Like people are doing this now with like hiring. They can create like a virtual hiring team of different roles within a company who look at a candidate or candidates and then argue about who they should hire, and it can do this fully autonomously.
So what you got people using AI to write CVs, to be emailed in, to be read by AIs to read the CV.
Yes, right.
And eventually, eventually at the other end, it's filtered out the people it doesn't think. So you don't even stand a chance if you haven't matched that inner criteria, then you're just not going to get a response. So this is another thing I feel incredibly sorry for young people trying to get jobs, is that they are literally feeding into an AI and they're not given a chance by a human who might have more intuition and more emotional understanding of what this person can bring their company, but they're filtered out already by an AI system that isn't you. It doesn't understand. How many good people are you going to miss out on because they haven't hit your criteria? And I don't know in the future if people are going to do degrees. So if you're going to recruit a human being, they might not have done a degree, which means they might not get in because automatically the AI has gone, nope. But that person might have more business knowledge and experience or whatever it is that you need. But because they haven't matched the identity, criteria, they won't get in.
You're right.
And the more I want more people in human resources than anything, because the anathema of having AI do human resources is just so ironic. It's just stupid. I mean, it's the one place where humans shouldn't be replaced.
Well, this kind of goes back to your idea about like intentionally recruiting the next generations for the future of your company. It's like traditional HR departments have been just playing catcher, right? Like they're just sitting back and waiting for inbound to come to them. And what you're talking about is a flip of that, and actually like doubling down on the human side of it and going out and seeing and talking to people and what are they doing and why are they doing it, and that it takes a different kind of effort. Right.
Look what banks and accountants did over here. When I was going to college, the banks and the accountants would turn up at the open days in the university trying to recruit people, and there would be human beings talking to human beings trying to get people to come to their thing because they needed the manpower. Didn't really see many architecture firms rocking up Oxford Poly to try and recruit people. I think I've heard stories of when Zahas have needed, they've got a huge project in, they've got a huge deadline, they'll go to the AA and just like say, who's got a laptop now and wants a job, and they'll just send them over to Zahas where we're in corridors doing bits of work for people. That I love that idea, but I think there has to be outreach. You have to realize that you're going to you need to recruit. You still need to recruit, even though it's a cost. And AI, everyone thinks, is a way to save cost, increase productivity, save time. Please recruit, but go out and find the best people you can, and go and grab them from university now, because how many people are going to be put off from studying in the future, I don't know. But the people who are in uni now are going to be like gold dust, because if they know Grasshopper, if they understand the concepts of BIM, if they understand AI, those people now are going to be very good, very, very beneficial to you as you make a transition towards a tech stack that we don't know what it's going to be, a workflow that we don't know what it's going to be, a billing system that we don't know what it's going to be. but having the smartest people in your company normally is a good sign for success, as opposed to not having that many people and relying on AI. And in some ways, AI is really aimed at automation. There's some stuff in here for looking at your legal side of things, which might be quite useful for your contracts, looking at your bids, analyzing stuff like that. I thought I tried to train. It was ChatGPT on things I've written. So I literally loaded 300 articles into this thing, and then I said, okay, write me something on BIM 2.0, and it was so negative. I kind of read through it and went, oh my god, this is that really what it's kind of come up with? Is that everything had a caveat, everything was slightly crap, and I was just like, right, okay, this is I'm learning something about what it thinks I write about. Like it made up stuff, it hallucinated. It was this is not reliable. This is not a reliable thing. So my use of it now is I write my article, but if I do such big topics, I can't write them all in one go. So I'll write about one part of it, and then I'll write another part of it a different day, and I've got a different tone. So the first day I'll be using I, and the next day I'll be using we, and this is a bit of a mess. So then I'll put one part into I now use Claude, and now we have a discussion about what it is that I said, and we have a debate, and it kind of knows my history and what I've written, and so then I might change my tone. But the one thing I use it for the most is to blend these one bits with another bit that has a different tone, because I've written on a different day, and every day I wake up I'm a different kind of person, or something's taken me off at a different angle.
Multiple personalities.
Yeah. Well, it's I've had a bit of information. Someone's just contacted me. Therefore, I've slightly changed the nuance of what it is I'm trying to say. But it's all right at writing PR. It can't really do a proper article. It's very good at taking an article and dismantling it and giving me what is it I'm saying here? It'll give me the 5 points, and I'm going, okay, this isn't that important. So my business partner Greg always is horrified when I send him an article, because we kind of agree what's going to go in. I kind of give him a vague word count, and then I get carried away because something is major. So a 2,000 word article suddenly ends up being 6. And he's like going, yeah, right, need to try and fit this in the magazine somehow.
I know, Greg. I can imagine this reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't. I'll give it to him. And if I don't hear back from him within a day, I know it's not necessarily a positive reaction. So, but yeah, that's why there's already. So the article that I sent you, the agentic future of BIM. That's an issue that is now available on Issue. I think it's going to be on the website soon. I've already got the follow-up is already written about governance. I was going to ask you about
that, because you asked some questions in there, and it's like, well, it's just amazing how fast things are changing, because you're answering your questions, in the next article.
Well, I wrote it, gave it to Greg, and then the Monday a Google paper dropped about agents working together and how. First, it was how do you get an agentic system to be precise, and part of the solution is to break a problem down into infinitesimally small parts and break down the processing into that, so that when it goes back up, that you end up with a much more likely specific answer, as opposed to hallucinating. And then the other thing was that these agents need to work together, so you need to have a governance structure so that they all have the same playing field, so that they're not acting independently. So that's kind of like that was one. And then 3 days later, I think on X, this guy from the finance industry, finance and legal, wrote this huge tome about which moats in business are at risk. And it was obviously from a kind of like a finance and legal point of view. And then I was kind of like trying to work out, taking those, they were very generic, abstract issues that you were talking about, not necessarily about within the industry, but one of them was kind of like payment systems. Payment systems are very hard to replace with AI. So things like Procore were actually quite strong, while things like ACC were a little bit, there's some elements in there that are kind of easy to replace. And so I've got this matrix now. Whenever I take a product, I slap it into this, and AI will go through it and say, this can be replaced by this plus that open SDK. They're very generic. This can be replaced by this and this SDK. This can't be replaced. And so you kind of, these big systems that have been developed in our industry over time, you can see which ones are going to be kind of like the massive game of Jenga, because some of these applications will be ubiquitous and you can create loads for free, don't have to buy the whole thing. So then what happens? Some applications, some 25 application collections, 70% of those applications were replaceable with SDKs.
Wow.
So yeah, the stuff's happening.
One of the things you mentioned earlier was this idea of like we were talking about Rhino and like the conceptual to the more level of detail, and then there's kind of the other way now, which is you can ideate at a high level of detail through the image making process, right? With Nano Banana 2, Nano Banana Pro, whatever, and so that just kind of flips the process around potentially, right? You don't have to start with lightweight geometry. You can start with literally lines on a page, and it can imagine to kind of take the mid-journey parlance. And I wanted to just talk about kind of how this goes spatial, because Autodesk recently announced their acquisition of, is it World Labs, right? Where it's like this idea of spatial AI.
They've invested 200 million, and the total raise for the company was $1 billion. So Autodesk didn't
That's right. It wasn't an acquire. Correct. No. Right.
It's they'll open their kimono or something at some point, so you can see some of the technology.
Okay.
It's so the one thing that happened in February, I think, was that Google DeepMind showed a 2D sketch it was a 2D sketch of a complex shape. And the complex shape had gyroids. It's a very mathematical shape, which in engineering and 3D printing is kind of an interesting structure, because it's kind of self-supporting, and it's got a lot of things that could be used in 3D printed solutions, air cooling and stuff. So DeepMind took a 2D drawing. From the 2D drawing, it created a 3D model, and it was kind of like a laptop stand, made up of all these holes which had gyroid geometry. So it made that leap from a 2D sort of axiometric drawing to a 3D model, a meshed model. Mm-hmm. Then they said, okay, make this into a laptop stand. It must support 3 kilograms, and it needs to be able to cool XYZ, has to be freestanding, whatever. So it gave it some physical constraints of a product. It then somehow, somehow made sense of the mesh. It then started playing with the size of the gyroids to let the airflow, because the laptop was going on it. It then had to create a structure that was strong enough to support 3 kilograms. Then it produced an STL file, and then it 3D printed it. Boom! That's
pregnant
like,
pause right there. That was perfect.
Yeah, that's like whoa, and we don't really know what SDKs it was using or whatever. But just as a demonstration, it was like a bomb landing in our little part of the world, and it also goes back to Blake Courter with his idea of having a kernel that actually works well with AI and ML, and we were talking about that because he was blown away by it. That SDK is available and he's already all over it. But this is everyone's living in fear in our industry that Anthropic will just drop another one in our space one morning. Oh, we've wiped out this job. Maybe it's automatic drawings. Google Minds already
like they posted
showing
the article about COBOL, right? And IBM stock tanked, right?
It's, every day these little bombs are going off, and they're only going to get better. AI is the worst it'll ever be today.
Yeah,
it's always going to get better, and so within that realm, the possibilities of creating a sketch and having a model is becoming a reality. We've been able to do it for a while with certain things, not particularly brilliantly, but you could get from a 2D drawing, you could kind of make a crappy mesh. The crappy mesh, you could try and make it into NURBS, clean it up a bit. Very manual, but those little leaps were there. Now DeepMind just went, oh, I'll go from a drawing and I'll deliver you an STL, and it'll be a functional object for that, for the intended usage. So yes, I think I'm pretty sure large significant architects are developing those kind of tools in-house for their teams, so they can ideate from 2D, 3D, go back to 2D, AI render, 3D model, 3D print. That's going to happen. The question, I don't think it kind of removes the need for Rhino, and there is something to be said. You're always going to have a translation from a 2D drawing to a 3D model. It's always going to be slightly inaccurate. There is still a strength in being able to model well, and for Foster and Partners and for Zaha's, the form is everything. Is that a roof or is that a wall? I don't know. It's glass. It just flows. So I still think that Rhino and those skill sets are going to be needed. I think the sketch can be taken further, and maybe it's enough to win the competition. I mean, the idea of entering competitions with this kind of technology behind you, it just crushes the cost that you'd spend on developing all these different models and all these different ideas. Ideation is going to be very fluid. You'll be able to deliver a lot of different ideas very quickly. And you'll be able to sketch and get your 3D renders, and then you'll sketch and you'll move, instead of redoing another sketch, maybe you flip the model around and go, oh, okay, yeah, I don't need to make the back of the building because it's symmetrical, or maybe the back of the building isn't symmetrical and there's made some stuff up. Right? You got no idea, but this is happening, and so you'll be able to come in it. You'll be able to scan a building, an existing building. So one of the guys you've got coming to next build, Florent Pou, P-O-U-X, he's a professor of point clouds, and he'll take a point cloud and go with AI straight away. It'll recognize what's in the scene. So the intelligence that you can apply to dumbness is just going to make everything incredible. It's going to make everything incredibly fluid as to levels of detail. I mean, this is probably pretty what it boils down to, is that we're so used to building up this level of detail from kind of there to very precise. Yeah, and I think that just, you can start at any point. You can start with a scan, you can start with a hand sketch, you can start with a massing model.
That's all sketching. Free. Those are all versions of sketching, right? I mean, it's coding is sketching, right? For example.
And you nothing will stay dumb. Nothing stays dumb. And I think that's super exciting.
And this technology filters all the way down to this, right? And you've got it in your pocket, or it's in your glasses, it's in your newest wearable device, or all of those, and they're all talking to each other. And
then you got drones. Drones are kind of like a common thing now. And photogrammetry is really good. Gaussian splatting technology is amazing. From just a few photographs, you can kind of get a really nice model now. it's it. I was talking to Gensler, and they were talking about before they even get started, if they've won an airport job, they're not doing the whole airport, maybe they're doing a refurb on an airport. It's really important for them to get the survey data in so they can start getting designing. And normally they'd have to go and commission a surveyor. The surveyor would go out, and then, it could be weeks, a month, if it's a big site, before you get the data to start playing.
Security clearances, all kinds of things. Yeah, right.
Now you can send some office juniors out with some mobile phones, and they can capture the inside, and you can get going. You might want to
get going. Right.
You can have the surveyor do the proper job, but you can get going based off some phones and or just a video. It's even just go around making the video, and the video is enough to capture the splat, the current state. Gaussian splatting is just coming along amazingly well. So yeah, we'll be doing a lot on reality modeling. There's so many workflows that could exist, and I think a lot of firms have a workflow, and that's our workflow. And I think that is inhibiting of taking on some of these new technologies, and having a team look at other technology and think, maybe we could improve. It doesn't have to start here, or we can start over here. And it's all about pipelines and getting data and having the data in the right format at the right time to do the thing you want to do. I think architects especially need to spend some time thinking about their processes to adopt some of these technologies to really rapidly advance. I guess the biggest fear is risk, is getting the wrong kind of data in, getting an error, that can be a big problem. So sure. I guess risk is is not the architect's best friend, but it also stops them from exploring some of these avenues. And you have to hope that they've got employees who are slightly the architect that goes off to learn Python scripting because they're interested. And so a lot of firms will have people who are going off and looking at this technology because they're interested. They're not like an HOK where they've got dedicated people or Foster and Partners.
Well, so much of business has been established on locking down the way we do things because that's repeatable, right? I mean, there's efficiency built into that. And you're talking about everything is a moving part now. And, you don't have to pay attention to all those. You absolutely don't have to. But, I mean, to your point, it's like you're going to be competing against firms that are paying attention to all those things.
Yeah. At the very high ends, they are very aware of that. And that is one of the reasons that's driving them to look. In the sort of medium to lower ends, probably the impetus isn't quite there yet because everybody is quite stuck in their ways. And everyone keeps telling me how AEC don't spend less of agriculture of fishing, which really gets boring and is crap. They're not the firms I see are laggards. Right. And I kind of think they must take the entire construction market and then they just tell architects, you're really slow. Well, yeah, if you're showing some guys out with a spade and a pickaxe, then okay, if you take the whole technology fund, then maybe they're not spending that much. But architects today are spending a lot of money on their Revits, spending a lot of money on real-time rendering, spending a hell of a lot of money on workstations. These people are trying, and I think it's a laziness in the software industry to try and label the industry as laggards to in some way get them to buy more, and it really annoys me. I think it's a lazy thing to say, but changing workflows is difficult. It undoubtedly
For sure.
Requires risk, and but if other people are doing it, from just this year, just from January to now, the stuff that's being released is mind-blowing. I've got software companies that are worried about having their moats destroyed by AI next year. I've got construction managers who think that AI software layers are going to come in to remove their entire roles. This is panic. There's a lot of panic in the people I speak to, and yet I go and see architecture firms with Foster Partners of the Week and talking to Greg HOK. They're like absolutely happy trying all these things out, trying to work out a new tech stack to make use of these benefits, to streamline their processes, to use everything that's out there, from real-time AI rendering to automatic drawings. That Nano Banana, that was a big shock last year when Nano Banana started producing like it understood what a drawing was.
Right.
Now, how accurate that was is another kind of fear of mine. Finch 3D are doing a load of testing with producing drawings with Nano Banana as a kind of like a DWG output. I'd love to see what the accuracy is that versus a real drawing. I mean, there's always that thing where they've got the video, AI generated video of that actor eating spaghetti, and then now it looks like it looks like straight from a movie. Well, before it was like a disaster area.
Right.
All of
right.
these things are just improving, and the chances of having I think I sent you the thing where somebody was just designing a internal building layout, and
it started with a floor plan, right? That was it, and
plan,
even the floor
3D
plan was generated, wasn't it, by AI? So
these are all canned, so there will be some messing around to get that. But if that's doing it now, in 2 years' time, you can imagine what that's going to be.
The wrong thing to do is to look at those things and look for the mistakes. Like that of course there's mistakes. Like there was an editor, movie producer who posted a 6-minute movie, right, short film on LinkedIn, and it was entirely AI generated, and there was lots of mistakes in it.
Right.
But you seriously just have to step back and be like, can you see what's coming? Because that's why it's important to not just sit back and watch how this is unfolding, but to actually get in there and use it. And I hate to say like you've got to use this stuff, but if you don't get in there and use this stuff, you will not be able to use the next version that comes out as effectively as you would if you're in there doing it now, right? If you wait. So I think it's, and just to elaborate on your example, so it started with I think it was an AI generated floor plan, and then it generated like top down perspective floor plan views, fully rendered, and then it was renderings of every room in this apartment, and then it was movies taking you through it. Like it was all of that, and it was kind of billed as like interior designer heaven, right? Like that. This is who they're aiming it at, and it's absolutely incredible the kind of work that's coming. And what does it take? It takes, you've got to get in there and play with it to actually be able to do that.
And the weird thing is that a lot of it is down to being able to explain it in a chat box, which isn't very intuitive for a lot of people to try and explain. I mean, I've tried generating images, just straightforward flat images, and boy oh boy, that's hilarious. You know, just trying to get the image that you have in your mind, but trying to put it into words and what you get.
And to your point, like that is a muscle that you build over time. It's not something you just go in there and you start getting good stuff immediately. You just don't. I mean, it's just like learning a tool like Rhino. It's just like, you're not going to build a great model the first time you do it. How do you learn how to build great models? You build a lot of models, right? Like that's how you do it.
Or you go online and say help, and then there's loads and loads of, thank God for Reddit and all those kind of things. But there's a great self-help community. In fact, so I was having trouble writing an agent, and I asked the agent that I was having trouble writing an agent, and it went, "Oh, okay, let me watch."
Yes.
And then it debugged itself. It told me what I was doing wrong, or the lack of clarity that I was giving it. And then I was like, oh, okay, so now agents are kind of extracted from itself from the agent to look at everything. It could look at my repository of other agents and say, oh, I can see I've already done this bit before. I will instruct the agent to do it this way. And I'm like, oh my God,
how many times it's like you've already done that. I found it over here. Do you just want to modify it a little bit and update it so that it's the latest version of what you're explaining here?
And then it goes, shall I run? And I go run, and it just now after a month, I've deleted 50% at least of all the agents I created because they weren't giving me what I needed or the value, or I'd done dumb things, and but I've kept half of them, and they're the ones that sort of don't have security issues. They're I've got one of my nicest ones is that it just goes out and it looks at all the major BIM vendors forums, and every Monday morning I log in and I can see what the top 5 talked about things are on the Revit forum, the ArchiCAD forum, and you just like kind of like, I've never had the time to do that. If someone was saying to me, "Oh, so it's all blowing up on the Revit forum," I'm not going to have a look.
Check.
But
I've
got a pulse check every morning, and it's kind of like, okay, there's nothing major's gone off. If a release comes up that causes some crap, I can get in there straight away and see what it is. So it's trying to be omnipresent. It's a godlike feeling of being able to scrape in what's happening that month, that week. One of the worst things I did was I created this app to go and monitor the share prices of all the major BIM vendors, of which there aren't really that many. And then I said, well, okay, I'm going to give you a fictitious $1,000. You can go off and invest it, and we'll see where you are at the end of the month. And then Anthropic launched its bomb, and because I'd only given it $1,000, it could only afford 4 Autodesk shares, or it bought 2 Autodesk shares, and it bought something else. And by the end of the month, everything was underwater. The whole thing was just like, this isn't quite where I thought it would be. It's not
you
really
need more funny money to give your
it's
AI
a good game.
agent.
I should have given it more diversity in what it could invest it in. But I think it's a good thing just to sit with a blank sheet and say, what is it that I've always wanted to know, but I haven't been able to. It's just been too complicated. It seems too broad that I can create in an agent to go and try and get me this information, and there's practically no cost in coming up with it and scripting it. The more complex it is, the more likely it is to go wrong. That's the first lesson I could tell anybody. But
well, one of the more interesting things that I find about it is that you can get to a point where it'll make recommendations about how to do the next steps, and then you can literally just say, "Do that."
Yeah,
you thought it was telling you how to do it, and then you just flip it around on it and say, "Yeah, just do that for me," and it's like, okay, done.
Are you sure you want this, or do you want them both? It'll always give me like, and then I'll go, "Hey, do both," and then and there is something to be said. I think someone said that AI doesn't necessarily give you a productivity benefit. It actually just gives you more work, because
I could see that.
We get
it's like BIM over CAD.
Yeah, we get absolutely enamored with the fact that we can get all this data, and I'm reading more reports that it's generated on things that I'm interested in than I've ever read in the past, and that's made me think more, which has made me want to write more, which has made my Greg's life hell, and I really don't fit in with our schedule of which has been kind of regular. And now I'm
sorry,
totally sick.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg. So I think there's this it definitely gives you more, but we're human. The more information you give us, and it's not, as long as it's not conflicting, but it kind of builds your knowledge base on something. I think it's absolutely possible to not know anything about let's say, 3D printed concrete, and within 2 days know everything about 3D printed concrete that's going on, because it can go off and find it, it can prep it, it can précis it can give you information, you can ask it questions. It's like a private tutor and research agent. And what would in the old days of CompuServe and telephones, you'd never get access to that information, and now you can even find out who the leading lights are, who are the people who are most popular and respected the most, and then you can go and track that person down on LinkedIn and then have a real conversation with somebody. So I think it's for all the bad things, it's got huge upsides. So it's very conflicting for me to kind of sit there, worry about the next generation, worry about loss of jobs, and then I think people who in your company who run with this thing and will build up a level of knowledge and competence that will be so valuable to firms. You definitely need to keep people who are there, but you also have to have this legal oversight, because it's so easy to stray into this world of giving away access to stuff, security. I mean, everything you upload to these sites, I think ChatGPT kind of like thinks it has a right to and stuff. I'm not too sure on the legal ins and outs, but I know that if you go, how do you hide a murder and bury a body? If you get arrested, they can go and find your chats and use it in evidence against you. So it's an official record which you have to be careful of. Not that I murdered anybody, but you have to be careful.
Well, so is email, right? And how many people have just put stuff in email that they should have never put in email, right? People think it's a safe, secure, private system, and it's not. It's the opposite of that.
Yeah, so May Winfield from Bureau Apple, she's a regular at Next Bill because she's just all over this stuff. I have regular, and that's the great thing, is that she's like a super, super, super lawyer. I am not, but when I was looking at all the EULA stuff and trying to work out what was going on, I could actually have a conversation with May on her level, because I'd used AI to go through the legal documentations, and I had questions from that I could ask her about, and I might not have understood exactly what she's on about, but I could take that conversation and get the AI to translate it into more human terms. So
non-lawyer terms, yeah.
Yeah, so I could have. It's enabled me to have conversations with people that I on a level that I couldn't do before. And then sometimes I get responses from people that I don't really understand. So I'll put the chat or that portion of the chat in, and a number of times it's kind of said, "Oh, what they're saying is this," and okay, this so it stops me from misreading. One of the journalistic skills you get is interviewing somebody historically on a tape or even though it's digital. As there was no voice to character recognition, I'd set my headphones on and I would be literally typing out exactly what they've said. Oh, ignore me. But within that process, I hear things in what they've said, like they were trying to tell me something here that they felt they couldn't say. So there was a really weird kind of like nuance that you would pick up on the
reading between the lines.
Yeah.
Right.
So at the time, in the hot fire of debate, you wouldn't necessarily pick up on it. And that's the only thing I think's probably missing is the nuance of the human trying to give you
body language.
Yeah,
it's like body language, right? Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that will also be AI'd. I think it's only a matter of time before it picks up on this person's pointing towards that, pointing to this. If you put this and this and this together, then this sounds like what's happening. They've already got AI that they can tell if you're lying or not, allegedly. So CEOs are really worried about reporting to Wall Street and seeing their face, because the AI might be able to kind of identify which things are the big fibs. I don't know what the world's going to be like. Imagine you won't be able to, if everyone's got glasses on and you've got an AI in your ear, you're talking to somebody saying, yeah, this person isn't telling you the truth. Well, that's my wife.
There's been movies like this, right? Like Liar Liar, and these things have played out for sure.
I think we're going to live in a different world.
Yeah. So let's make the case for the anti-AI / like Luddite AE firm. Do you think that there's going to be? I could see, this is my identity as a firm, and I align with people who are not going to go down that road. I'm just curious if you've thought about that, if you played that scenario out in your mind at all.
I think there will be a boutique service where you're dealing with people, but you still want them to have AI to remove the risk and stuff. They will have to use technology, but you will. It's like look at banking. I used to have a bank manager years ago, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Now I haven't had a bank manager since. The people who have bank managers are very wealthy people. The one-to-one service is for you, where this yes sir 3 bags full. Everyone else just deals with their web page. And I think that human content, human interaction is going to be incredibly important for very expensive, high-end services. And I think the rest of us will be dealing with machines. And the machines are going to get better, and we probably will forget we're dealing with machines. But ultimately the machines are going to be right most of the time, and humans are fallible. And I don't know if we'll be too happy. It's like when they sold cars, they used to say they were hand built by robots, giving you the idea that they're very precise, and that means they're really good engineering. That didn't mean they didn't rust, or it was a bad design or whatever. But the idea of something being automated, I think, in architecture, I think there's always going to be the savant. There's going to be somebody who comes up with something that no one's come up with before. The problem is how that person gets educated and into the business and goes off to do their own. I mean, you see practices like Foster and Partners recruit all these top guys that come in, and then eventually they leave and they set up their own practices, and that will be still the case, but I think it's going to be fewer, because there will be fewer people in the system. You're not going to need a legion of people doing drawings. You're not going to need a legion of people doing renderings, which used to be the case. They're saying that.
Right.
Foster and Partners still was like 2,000 plus people in it. It's huge. They're busy as hell. So there is plenty of work. Maybe it's overseas. Probably is. But I just don't know how big the firms are going to be. What's the ratio that AI is going to compress, increase productivity and compress team size? No idea. You're always going to have somebody. You're always going to have an engineer sign off on anything that gets produced by engineering software. I think the architect will always want to speak to a structural engineer, and not just computer says yes, computer says no. I think there's still that has to be in there. I think the software industry is going to be a very different place. If you're a software developer, you're going to have to offer more than just what could be created with AI plus an SDK. You have to offer knowledge. You have to offer a higher level of value. And we're coming to the end of the low-hanging fruit software developer. You have to add real value, whether in breadth or in depth. And I think that's people are going to be rethinking their product strategies. So you're going to have very different kinds of products coming out. I unfortunately think a lot of people are kind of thinking in this tone of creating an AI feature, one feature that's AI, or a couple of features that's AI. So it's in a standard bit of software, but they've got AI on this one bit, which will give you checkout. And that's a feature. That's not really an agentic system. That's not really where this thing goes next. So I kind of feel the next 2 years, you're probably going to see a whole raft of people doing single features which aren't working together. We'll take something, automate, spit out, but what we really want is something that all together works together.
Right.
I don't know who's going to be developing that or where that's going to come from. You'd kind of assume it was kind of like the Autodesks and the Nemetscheks and the Bentleys. It could be a completely new company. It could be a Palantir that buys something. It's the level of knowledge that has to go into an MEP agent, or a level of knowledge. Augmenters are spending a lot of money and a lot of time building those MEP agents. I don't think it's something that could be done again and again and again. And then this is the problem for the big software firms, where if you're Autodesk and you've got Revit MEP and you've got stuff there, but it's dumb. And then you've got an augmenter which is solving overnight, but maybe augmenter gets bought by Cowie or an AECom. Wow. Okay, there's no one who spent 5 years and $10 million to do all of that. So what you're going to do is you're left with whoever's next, or developing it in-house. Right? Mm-hmm. These things are going to be like rocking horse poo, and that's why Consigli got bought by AECom, because they're all once they got taken out of the equation. There's Augmenter. That's really the only other company AI agent in this area that I know of, and then Endra kind of waved the flag. One of the guys in Autodesk told me about them, so I was kind of like had a conversation. The rarity of the knowledge of the skill might be the thing that keeps the industry as it is for longer than I think. And maybe I've underestimated the lack of the time it takes to build an AI agent in a specific vertical. But you've got DDS CAD, but Nemetschek, they've got all the parts and the libraries to make a 3D MEP, but they don't have the AI logic to do it automatically. Autodesk could do it automatically with in-house. But then that's specialist knowledge, and there aren't going to be that many of those people to do it. Architecture for me is the difficult one, because there's so many things that an architect, it's, as you said before, as a degree goes, it's a brilliant baseline to cover a whole manifest of different types of artistic, physical, structural, aesthetic, historic. A lot of my friends who went off to do architecture ended up doing set design or interior design, or nothing to do with design whatsoever. It's a very good basis. So maybe it's something that we should be recommending that people do anyway, because even if there aren't brilliant AEC jobs in 5 years, 3 years time, then there might well be other areas where that skill set that you get can be used or put to use. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your conference that's coming up it's May this year, right?
10 weeks. Yeah. So
are you wincing? You got a lot to do.
I've got a lot to do. So we've been going for 10 years, and this is our 10th year of doing it. I do not have a shortage of people that want to speak. The challenge is to get the right people to speak who are doing things that are out there. And if I get a BIM show, 9 times out of 10, it's someone pitching their product, and it's like, doesn't really tell you anything. Next bill for me is like next. It literally is, what are we going to do in the next 3 to 5 years? I've already decided that old BIM is a dead thing walking.
Not a topic.
What's coming? And while I assume that everyone in the room is using dead thing walking technology, files, all those kind of stuff, we have to start thinking about how this industry changes. AI is going to be huge. So agentic AI and AI is going to be like a substrate for it. The BIM 2.0s are now they've got product out. It's not the product that we want yet. They're all coming. So they're going to be there, obviously. I've mentioned the engineering side. I've got everybody who's doing AI engineering design all in one place. We're going to be having a discussion about the impact of that on the industry and where that's going. I've got offsite construction firms that are still willing to try, which is like, it's the biggest graveyard in the industry. It's just unbelievable that I'd hate to add up all the money that's gone into offsite construction that's been burnt. So obviously we're kind of having two things. We're having the event's over 2 days, and normally have kind of like a communal session, and then it breaks into 2 streams, of which it's a bit random in bed rooms. This time I've decided to keep architecture in one room, construction in the other, so that we can go quite deep into these very specific areas. And then dev is still dev, where unfortunately a lot of people think it's about developers, and it's not software developers, but like developers. It's like, no, it's the day when we sit around and we try and work out where this technology is going. And the important thing about dev is that people from the design IT guys from AEC firms are there to tell the software developers and the money people where their problems are today and what still needs solving, because we're fed up of seeing stuff that gets developed that, we'll have 10 different CDE modelers, or 10 different kind of like you've got test fit, and then suddenly there seem to be like 50 of them. It's like, well, we don't need all this money's being poured into developing the same thing again and again and again to do coordination. What can we tell you what we need so that you can spread the load and maybe solve some problems? So next build, this year we're still continuing with the automation of drawings. There are now more people who are developing auto drawings applications. I think there's going to be some launches at the show, so we're going to see some more auto drawing technology, server based in the cloud, doing all sorts of stuff. We're going to be looking at how do software firms and AEC firms get together, because if these startups don't get some engagement and feedback, they're going to die. And they have to have some level of engagement to get VC funding. And so we're going to have a debate about how we can get these startups to work better. I mean, AEC firms are time poor. They haven't got a lot of time to invest in stuff. So how can we cross that gap? What can we do? The other one is looking at future business models. I already talked to Autodesk, talked to Bentley. We know they're looking at different business models, because named user licenses is going to die, because automations are going to start killing seats, not growing them. So we're going to have a look at token value-based, outcome-based. Let's have a discussion, because I think it's important that AEC firms get their say into the software firms and the VC money people.
It's come up on the podcast it's come up here many times, because it's like that you're not in the same phase you're not in that early phase of design all year long. You're not in the middle phase of design. Maybe you have multiple projects, but maybe you don't. And so, yeah, it's complicated, right? Is the answer. And firms are spending a ton of money maintaining seats that they're not using all the time.
The subscription model was supposed to give flexibility to the customers. No, you got to sign up for 3 years. There's no flexibility. I think I in a conversation with Andrew Anagnost, I said to him, I believe that KPF hired Goldman Sachs to come in and look at their token usage so they can estimate it for their EBA agreement for 3 years. That's the level of crap you're putting on your customers, that they have to get an accountant in to help them estimate their token usage. This is insane.
And then manage it. And managers, like you have to have roles in your firm just to manage that process that you never had to have that before.
Someone told me the KPF decided that the thing that they were going to do was just delete AutoCAD. Because what would happen is everyone would go into work, they'd start up their AutoCAD and their Revit and just like make that grab in the morning. Not that there's network licensing stopping them anymore, but every time they started it, then like 9 tokens or whatever the token rate is would just disappear, and they were spending something like $1.5 million on unused sessions because people were just starting the application, and that part of that is habit. It's a very expensive habit, and so by deleting AutoCAD, then everyone stays in Revit, and that sounds like wow. That mean, in some ways, I'm kind of slightly pleased because it means that hopefully they won't break the model or the drawings by taking them to AutoCAD to do something which they'd have to do it in Revit, so it would be in some way coordinated. But anyway, so that was one thing. And then the other thing that's come along is, so I'm understanding that Autodesk has kind of introduced some kind of like higher token pricing for seats of Revit that are doing automation. So you as a company are looking to save money. You're looking to deploy automation. Now, before you might have had like 500 seats where everyone did their drawings, but maybe you're just like going to concertina that down to 2 with some clever automation tools to do it. Well, that's they're going to cost more. So they want a slice of the productivity benefit that you found for yourself by buying some third-party software that because you've lessened the need of the number of seats that they've got. And so that's another kind of problem that I think the industry's is there's going to be a rearguard action as we move from named user licenses to whatever tokens and something else. These companies are going to come back to you and go, with our automation, even though it might not be theirs, it could be a third party, we've saved you 5 employees' wages. We want our slice. And I find that outrageous because the architects are the ones who've brainstormed and come up with a solution, and they've delivered the automation. And with AI, they're going to be delivering more in-house automation. And yet the software vendors are going to see the number of licenses shrink, and they're going to come back for a bigger chunk of whatever it is that you are using. I think that's my big fear is the software companies and capitalism. I keep saying this, but they all have to grow. And if they don't grow, then there's a problem. And so therefore, they need to do the growth thing. And they've only got one source of revenue, which is customers. And unfortunately, you're going to be paying more. So I kind of think the price of software, even though we're in a world of AI, is actually going to go up. Because you're going to need less of it. And if you're not metered to hell and paying high prices for the metering, they're going to come after you for a slice of how much that project was worth, because they need to maintain. But how long does a project last? When does the software company get paid? If you're willing to accept that. Augmenta's got an interesting business model where they'll go to the client, they'll say, how long would it take you to design this data center electrically? 6 months. Okay, we'll do it at 10% of the cost that you estimate that you will do to do it. We'll do it overnight, and you can do it as many times as you want. You can run the outputs as much as you want until a set date, and go ahead. Okay, fine. And that's one model. So everyone's going to be testing this out. The SaaS world, the cloud SaaS world that these guys thought was going to happen 5 years ago is vanishing. And automation is now their biggest threat. Their biggest threat is their customers being more efficient. It always makes me smile. And that's what's going to happen. Smart companies are going to start looking for automation, and if you can get a workforce that will work towards helping you finding those automations and saving that money. You can either spend the money on going after more projects and being a bigger company, or you start hatcheting jobs away and become a smaller company that's quite profitable.
Right.
I'd like to think that people would keep their jobs as opposed to firms deciding to be more profitable. But
Well, if
again,
you look at what's going on in the tech space, that's not happening, right? They're just being slashed and slashed and slashed because of automation. Yeah.
so I fear. I think you're gonna. So look at the engineering world. So electrical cars come out. There are normally huge design teams that work on cars, and most of that is because of transmission and the engine. You got body shop people and you got interior design and stuff, but a lot of that is down to the mechanics of car. How comes an electric vehicle? You got batteries and you got an electric motor. Most of these things are built on a standard platform. The batteries you have no say in. The electrical engine is something you buy in. So the only thing that really needs to be engineered is the body, the interior, and the suspension. Maybe let's think about the cooling. But the design teams for cars have been hugely slashed based on the technology of the car. And I kind of feel that in some ways the failure of modular has saved a lot of jobs in the industry, because buildings haven't become things that you order online particularly easily. But at some point that we all feel that that's an inevitability, that there will be sort of a modular solution to a lot of building types. But I don't know how far away that is. I don't know.
Right. Like you said, there's a big graveyard there of companies, of startups.
Oh, yeah. I went to see one company, and they had a load of all of these modules were on an airport, and the reason was because the delays on site meant the factory was churning out all the modules while the site had problems. So they had all these modules. They had to store them somewhere, so they stuck them out in the open in an airfield. The process is so shockingly inept between the different departments, from design to construct. It's a massive coordination problem. Anyway, but so we'll be looking at that as well. The great thing, we got an increasing number of AIA large firm roundtable firms come to the next build, which is great. You have amazing conversations in the hallways.
So it's not just the software companies that are showing up to
no.
You got to have all sides of the conversation there.
Yeah, and in my event, the AEC firms are king, because and so Autodesk have come along, which is great, but they get 20 minutes. So does Conic, who I don't know how many things they've sold, but everyone I've got last year CityWeft, a company that didn't have any funding that I knew of, or they got 20 minutes. It's a case of we've got a level playing field. Everybody has got. I want them to bring your A game, to say exactly what you're doing, not what you've done, but what are you doing. Last year was a bit of a special because we had all the BIM 2.0s in a row, and it was kind of like the first time that all of them had been available. But this year they're all going to be looking at their agentic features and what they're going to be offering and how they're going to bring that in.
A lot has changed in a year. I mean, it's only been a year, but the topic has changed completely. Right.
I've got Raven coming, the guy who's doing the sketch to model in Rhino. He's flying from the States. I hope Nate Miller's he's got to still give me a few ideas of what we're going to use him for, but he's still going to come out. I love Nate, so that would be great. Now I did ask Hierarch. I need to circle around to see. They said yes last year, but I need to circle around, because even though what they do is not applicable to the Europe, because timber frame McMansions we don't have them. But what they've done with their software is absolutely beautiful. I think it's a demonstration to this industry of you pick one building type, you build one cloud-based modeling solution for it, and you can do the drawings, you can do everything. You can even include people who can't model. You can take a sketch and with AI bring that in and turn that into a model. It's a delight, and I think that it's just such a shame they've come to market while there's an idiot in charge, and the building market in the States is in terrible state. But when things do pick up, I think that kind of technology is just going to be an absolute killer for house builders. I reckon there'll be an equivalent of that for office buildings. There'll be an equivalent of that for, well, if we still have jobs in offices, a hospital version. It just is. It's the perfection of BIM computer science is what HIOC is, and everybody needs to see that to realize what's possible in a multi-discipline single solution.
Sets the bar, yeah.
Sets the bar, but then the breakaway from that is maybe, I've had a conversation with somebody yesterday. Maybe the generic Revit kind of building model is not going to exist in the future. Maybe everything is an expert system. Maybe because how many new types of building are there that are generated? I mean, why do you need a generic thing that doesn't really know much about the building type when you could have a building solution that actually understands, okay, these things are important, the fire regulations in an office are important, or they can run that all the time. But then that's out there. But at the moment we're dealing with the world as it is, and I'm just seeing the breakdown of that monolith happening very quickly now. Those moats, I think RVT, file format issues, they'll be dissolved. It always reminds me, there was that film with Piers Bronson where he's monitoring some volcano that goes off, and to escape they get into a boat, and the boat's made out of aluminium, and the lake that they're going across turns to acid, so the boat is slowly melting, and the propeller finally gives way and it just goes down to a little stub. And I kind of feel that's the future for a lot of software in the AEC space. Is they're in a metal boat in a sea of acid, and we'll see which bits of the boat survive the journey to the other side. But yeah, my brain jumps to visual whenever I kind of like. I'm trying to send it to myself, so my brain throws in these kind of like, oh yeah, in that film. But obviously, it's a bit like rowing across a lake of acid.
Obviously. Well, this idea of having an in-person event and just the value of that and getting people in the same room to have these conversations for 2 days is still super valuable when obviously the fire hose of information and the internet is just constantly flowing.
It's the best thing.
Maybe just talk about that human element,
Yeah, so it's the best thing that I do all year, and it takes 3 or 4 months to plan it. And so the night before, we get the speakers and some of the exhibitors and some of the design IT royalty. We have like a few beers, so that's like a good start point. Everyone's super social, so they know each other. Next day we get going. There it's absolutely manic because every 20 minutes, each room's doing something different. People send teams because they're scared of missing things. I think. Yeah, next build and next dev we do. Next build, both streams we do live. So keep an eye out on the website for that, so you can join in. And then at the evening, it's kind of like more beer, more meets, more little conversations. It's always a great place to hear scuttlebutt. And then the next day is dev, which is a different field. So that next build kind of vibe is very much about seeing practitioners. So it's like, the Fosters and the HOKs and the Perkins and Will talking about their workflows and how they're adapting to adopting new technology. But the next day is very much more software people talking about where they're at, brand new things people haven't seen before. Some guy up in Estonia that doesn't have any money but is doing something really interesting in something that I've kind of found out that I might have written up in the year and saying this guy's really fascinating in Gaussian splines or whatever. And then at the end, it's a bit of a, after 2 days of talking nonstop, a lot. I mean, all the nights are late. It's a bit like a collapse, and it's just great to have the conversations with people that the first time Julian Moot from Bentley came, I thought he was just going to be there for the day and gone. This guy's way too important to hang around. He was the last person to leave the bar on the second night, and he was super hyped. And he'd like to say, the one thing I've learned from the last 2 days is that the market is completely open. They're, talking about moats. It's the future hasn't been decided yet, but in London, for some unknown reason, there's a lot of signature architects, I guess, who are kind of out there and thinking about workflow changes. And now we're getting the kind of New York crowd coming in who are also better funded to probably and have equally big ideas of what they're doing. And there's a really interesting mix between US architects and UK based architects. And you sit there and listen to their conversations, or you try and take part in it, and you see that they're all doing they're all doing a lot of things that anybody who thinks that the AEC space spends as much money and time as agriculture and fishery really needs to kind of like leave that at the door, because these people are doing amazing things. They're all training their own LLMs. They're all totally experimenting with piping data around all different products. They're all looking at automation. It's just
it's a pulse check.
The stuff that these guys are doing is amazing. It really is. And some of it wasn't possible. The exciting thing is that these firms were large and they've got people who can program. I reckon in 18 months' time there'll be people coming to next build who can't program, but equally can get their own bespoke programs, and they'll be coming along and they'll be on the same level because suddenly they have that ability to play. Architects have always said to me, "Oh, we're not Fosters. We can't afford. We're bill per hour. We can't afford to have computer programmers and like they can." The world changes, and
talk about democratization of of tools to.
It's a democratization of research and development. It's a democratization of application development. It's a democratization of data, because suddenly it's not locked inside of moats, and you can do what the one thing that everyone will realize very quickly is if you don't have your data on your own server, on your own storage, then you're limited as to what you can do. I mean, this is the one thing probably should have said earlier. So talking about APS. So I was looking at Autodesk APS thinking, all right, someone told me that the MCP servers are going to be shoved on the end of APS. So if you want to do a AI check on your data, you've got to go through APS, which is all tokenized. So, however, if you want to touch your data, Autodesk are kind of open in that respect that you can just go in, pay the money, get the data. The problem is that APS has limits on how much data you can take out. It's actually bandwidth protected. So there's only so much data you can take out and there's only so many times that you can ping it over a certain period of time. So it's actually constrained. I think that's okay for the next year, where people might want to do. I want to have some dashboards. I want to check my project information every week. Roll forward to when you've got agentic systems that are hitting your data on ACC constantly.
Right.
You're going to have a huge token bill, and you're going to run into bandwidth problems because this thing's constrained. And I don't know why it's constrained. I don't know if it's their server limited, or maybe they can do something about that. But the cost alone would be enough for you to go, this isn't a great place for me to do any real agentic stuff on my information. And so, APS is 10 years old. It was never intended to be an agentic system. It was intended, maybe, it was very far, it was amazing. It was an amazing thing for Autodesk to do 10 years ago plus, to realize that the cloud was where they wanted to be. And every time they've got all these applications they needed to port to the cloud. What a nightmare. Can we break down our applications into core areas and then assemble them in the cloud? So when we came to port them, we could rebuild them in the cloud with common DWG, common document management, common viewing. And then third parties could also develop on top of it. Customers could also develop on it. It was a brilliant idea, really, really far-sighted. But Autodesk didn't really ever, because Inventor's still on the desktop, Revit's still on the desktop, AutoCAD's still on the desktop. 10 years later, the only real product that they developed that I know of is Tandem. That was the first real APS product, but all the real money makers are still on the desktop. So right. APS is a bit of a failure in terms of what it should have brought to Autodesk. They were very early in identifying the cloud. Perhaps
never realized its full potential, basically.
Never realized that. Now you'd think, now it's coming into its potential with agentic workflows. But from my analysis, with the limitations and the price, it's a stopgap. It's at best. It's not an agentic system where you have huge amounts of data being ingested and processed by AIs as you work and as stuff is developed and dropped into the repositories. It strikes me that Autodesk will need to come up with something else, software developers should be aware that this is a weakness, that we currently don't have anybody visually on the market saying that they've got an agentic solution. It's worthwhile in this edition of the mag, Conic, Arcol, TestFit, Motif, who else is there? All the BIM 2.0 guys have given their views in the edition of how they see agentic. And it, again, you can copy and paste that into Claude and then ask Claude to analyze the differences. If you that's quite a good way of figuring out, boiling down what each one's doing. Yeah, I think Altaf Saprius as well, the other one. But Mars is very interesting, and if you read it with a Autodesk hat on, it's incredibly pointed as to
from Motif. Motif
is. Yeah, I'm very interested in what Motif will come up with. I know that they're licensing the Parasolid engine. I know that they're very heavily into agentic AI, and I think that's been a bit of a switch from their view, maybe from 2 years ago.
But like you said, they're kind of the latest one to the party, but also maybe in the best position to implement.
And Amar is an old dog. He is not developing his stuff in the open. Everyone else is, here's some new features. Here's some new features. So it's very easy to go and see what other people are doing. I think Motif is going to come left field. It's not. No one's going to have much of a clue of its capabilities. He's very kind of old school in that kind of don't develop out in the open, don't give your competitors the edge.
Yeah, don't show your cards. Yeah,
and I think that probably puts the woolies up Autodesk a bit, because they can go and see what the other competition are doing, the BIM 2.0s, but they can't see what Motif is doing. And I don't think you'd have much of an idea from the stuff they have sold or showed or tried to sell to this point. And they're a very capable team of people who have a lot of respect in the industry. So there's always that threat. But I think Snapshoot's impressed me incredibly with the conceptual stuff they've added in the last 6 months, five months. And Conic is just amazing. And I think I've said this multiple times, but literally the whole time of my life, when I've seen software develop, they've developed it for data sets that are a certain size. And then over time, they end up with customers building more and more. They have to try and find more performance. And so they end up trying to get the...
It gets worse and worse.
It gets worse and worse. And it's like, oh my God, we wouldn't have built the data set as it was. They've started off with just this ability to ingest everything and fly at huge FPS numbers. And then you just fly into the building, you fly up into the one object, and then you start modeling. And anyone who's got Revit is just like, I mean, this, if it has the right tool set built on it, it will demolish anything in its path. If it has the right tools. For now, it has the right scale, scope, and speed. It's very, very angled towards construction because it just seems it's also quite an interesting greenfield space to be playing in, as opposed to trying to compete against a Revit, or they've got their own kind of little sandpit to play in. But if that thing delivers in the AEC space, so Revit is constantly, if you edit it, it's constantly trying to check the parametrics of every single part to see if any of the edit you made has got any kind of like follow on. So it's constantly in this high process state, and so that slows it down because it's got so much stuff to go through, all these linked
It's looking
geometries.
out for you, Martyn. It's looking
out for you. But and if it had just been to use more processors, more cores, that might have been okay. What Conic doesn't do that. Conic, you just infer parametrics. You infer a relationship between the geometry. Then you do your edits, and then you remove it. And it's always done geometry. You just put smarts on it. It's such a refreshing way of dealing with it that it's chalk and cheese. This is why Revit can't be this future product.
I want to know what that means.
It's a Britishism. I have no idea where it came from.
Yeah.
But Conic has everything that it's showing, and it's doing like 4D now, and it's doing, I'm just every month they stick a whole lot of stuff up on it. I'm like, you guys are just nailing it.
It's more like a visual effects workflow than an AEC workflow in that regard, right? It's just like raw speed and power and like get the job done. And
they've taken no VC
we don't have
money.
time to wait. We don't have time to wait for anything, and that's totally what they're delivering on.
And the thing that's interesting is that I kind of must have gone over to see them maybe a year or two after they'd started, and we went for lunch, and it was like 25 people for pizza, and all of them had been working together for over 10 years, but they were at BricsCAD. It was like a family. So these people immediately were a team, and to have that velocity of people all working together, pushing forward rather than we'll hire him. It's a massive advantage. Advantage. And then no VC money. It's all self-funded. Thank you very much, Hexagon, for buying BricsCAD. And so no one's dictating to them any rules. So they've got a lot of things that are very fortuitous. Some of it happenstance, where they got Hexagon realised that BricsCAD was going to be really useful for them, and so they exited with that. But also, the first time we did dev, I asked Eric to give a talk about. I always try and have someone who's older, an older generation to be there to try and tell software startups a little bit about their story, about how they managed to exit or whatever. And Eric had me in tears because he literally built a company. Then he got not greedy, but he thought the great thing was to go off and go public, get a lot of money in. Then that kind of caused problems. The company goes bust. He's like in that process, he's going back to his staff saying, "Look, to survive, I need to cut your wages," and they all went yes. And then kind of eventually, I think it did go bust. And then he said he was sat there in front of his bank manager saying, "I owe you 300,000 or 400,000 euros. The only way you're going to get that back is if you lend me more money and I start my company again." And the guy went, "Yeah,"
and it worked.
And it worked. And the thing was the story about the staff and Eric and the staff being totally simpatico and just being a team. And it's definitely worth watching. All of these people who've been through the mill. It's inspiring to hear their stories and to hear what went wrong and what went right. And some of it is luck. They will always say that. But Eric, even though he's sold his company and he could very easily be living on a beautiful island with a yacht, decided to start again and build another BIM tool because he tried twice before and now he's doing it again, and he's doing it with the same people that he worked with before. But all those lessons that he learned along the way are being applied to Conic. So I'm deeply impressed. I'm talking about Eric and the team, but I'm deeply impressed by everyone. Altaf was in this space when nobody wanted to develop a new Revit, and they just I spoke to someone at Hexagon. Was it Hexagon? I spoke to someone at the CTO of Hexagon, and I said, there's all these people who want the next generation of tool, but no one was willing to do it. They're all the open letter guys who are willing to talk to anybody who'll listen. And after about 6 months, they came back and said, "No, it'll cost 250 million. No, not interested." And I'm like, "There's a guy in India. He hasn't got any money, and he's willing to sort of develop and have a go at it. And you're a company with unlimited resources who just think, it was very short-sighted." And then talking to other firms, they said, "Look, we're volume players. We can't go and talk to these large signature architecture firms because there's no future in us selling volume to these people." And then AI is coming along. And I'm like going, how many volume seats are you going to be selling in 10 years' time? Because I think we're in a different world now. And
Talk about making assumptions, right?
Right. Yeah. My favorite one is the Phantom Jet, where they designed the Phantom Jet thinking that all future warfare in the air was going to be beyond visual range. So designed this plane with loads and loads of racks, loads and loads of missiles. The Americans sent them into Vietnam, and then they were suddenly dogfighting with MiGs, and they didn't have a cannon, and they only had these long beyond visual range AMRAAM rockets, which meant that they were completely useless. So these things were sneaking up behind them with their radar off, and then they were in a dogfight and they had no gun, and so they had to take the Phantom Jet and reverse engineer a gun inside it, which meant they bloated the nose of the thing so much that you could hear a Phantom Jet coming from 10 miles away. It's all about making design. It's like design's really important anyway. Design is important in fighter jets. It's important in CAD software.
Turns out.
And I don't know if you've ever been to Stockholm. There's
yes,
an amazing the boat that capsized. There's this one boat. It's like 16th, 17th century boat, and it might be even older than that, maybe 15. And it's the Valda. It's in my head. I have to go and look it up. But this boat is in its. They were building it, and the king heard that in Britain we had an extra layer of guns on our boats. So he, midway through designing this boat, he says to his guys, another layer, more guns.
More guns.
More guns. And so they do it, and they every ship does a test. And the test is they have the full crew go from the left, port, starboard, whatever, and they do they run to see how it rolls. It failed that test because it was so top heavy with all the guns. He insisted that they go out anyway. So the boat goes out, and the first gust of wind, it leans to one side. All the lower port, the gun holes were open. Water flooded in. It sank. It never did anything. It never blew anything up. It never shot a gun. It sank straight out of the bat.
Yeah, right.
Because they changed they tried to build something on a platform that was not fit for purpose. And I wish I could remember the name of the damn thing. It is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your life. You go into this kind of darkened, huge warehouse, and it's there with all the ropes and all the guns and all the paint and all of it. It's just, it's right next to the ABBA Museum. So cool. you can kind of compare the two. But for me, these stories resound when I kind of look at technology. And I look at products that people are trying to extend the life of by building things on that they were never intended to be. And at some point, everyone has to realize software has a life. And then at some point, you have to have a new generation. And that new generation...
Let's extend that to firms. I think it needs to be extended to firms too, right? Like, the same analogy can totally apply. Like, I'm saying that because it's a difficult problem, and I think a lot of people aren't putting the attention on it that it actually deserves. And so, of course, you're going to have attrition, and those people are going to just go start something from scratch, which is literally a small team is going to compete with your big, giant thing because the technology is leverage.
I agree.
This is a reality.
It's winning that first deal that keeps you in business, and then doing a really good job on that to the point where you can go and get more business, and then it'll come down to fees. This is the thing: is that everyone, everywhere, all at once is going to be rethinking that process, rethinking and being fearful. Every design IT director should be speaking to their board, saying, "This is coming. I'm telling you early because we're a big oil tanker and we are going to have to turn. And there are going to be pitfalls along the way and we're not going to get it all right. But there's enough technology and there's enough momentum in what I'm seeing, I know, that means that we're going to have a different world. And that world is not going to come slowly. It's going to come quickly. And it will impact different parts of it at different speeds. If I was an engineering firm, like I would be, if I was a Cundles, if I was someone in MEP, in structural, I would be seriously evaluating what's going on because they've got 18 months before this hits. The biggest thing that could happen is if large firms bought that technology so that it wasn't available, or it couldn't be weaponized by an Autodesk or to be given to everybody. If that can get sucked up,
available to everybody,
and it could go one of two ways because there are so few companies out there doing it. But people like Endra have got to prove. I haven't seen the software. All I've done is talk to them and they've taught the right talk and they've said the right things that they're going to do. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a great product. I'm guessing that they speak the right things. But that's something I'm watching very, very hard. What's going on there, because there are so few players and those products are starting to get very, very obviously beneficial. And that kind of goes down to people who do startups. If you're doing a startup, are you developing a startup to create a business, or are you creating a startup to sell to someone?
Right.
The vast majority of the technologies I see are being built to sell So they can, here's a 5 to 7 year marathon, and then someone will buy us. The VC companies are there. That's what they want to do. They want a 10 times multiple.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And so that's the thing with Conic, where they don't have VC money. So the incentive to them to sell is not outside, it's internal if they want to do that. So this space has twists and turns are coming. I can guarantee you that there will be consolidation this year. All the firms are looking at buying. All of the major BIM firms are looking at the market, thinking, if I had that and that, maybe I'd buy them. Everyone, every single one of them. Yeah, even Autodesk is sniffing around, but that could just be normal strategy analysis, perhaps, because they've got Forma. But is Forma delivering? I don't know. I don't see many people using it out there. It's free. Yeah, I don't know. So I talk to Arcol a lot. Paul's doing really well. I know Snaptrude's getting 6 times the traction that they were last year with the AI stuff. I'm speaking to people who are saying, we just want to get away from American software. And I'm like, wow, there's that aspect of the whole trade war thing, anti-EU. There's that playing off as well in terms of, I wouldn't be surprised if the EU is going to be more investigative of American firms playing in Europe based on what's happening with Trump. There is definitely a feeling within governments in Europe to replace traditional American software like Word and that kind of stuff with local brew equivalents. It really does, that stuff's really playing out. It's not he's making enemies out of allies, and that's feeding through to businesses who don't want to be supporting that, even though most of the software companies have nothing to do with what's going on.
Victims along the way.
Yeah, everyone is a victim in this sad world. Apart from AI, I was very disappointed with OpenAI signing with the Pentagon. I was very happy with Claude. So maybe
you saw what happened. The people voted.
Yeah, I've got both, and I still have both, but I've spent so much time training the damn thing that I kind of think, oh god, which bits are in now, which bits are in Claude. Claude's kind of new for me, but by far and away, Claude is. It's so different. It's so much better. I feel like
it's a different animal. Yeah, it operates very differently. Yeah.
The only thing that was, so I had ChatGPT, and I've been using it like for day in day out, and then I moved to Claude to do, because I'm using it for the one of the agentic tools I'm using is based on top of Claude. I kind of realized this is a very clever system. Maybe I should get Claude. So I moved to Claude, and then by 2:00 in the afternoon, it said, "Okay, you've had your credits. I'll see you tomorrow."
Right. Right.
What? So then I'm like, I had to ask ChatGPT about Claude, and it went, "Oh yeah, that's the way it is." And so then I upgraded my Claude because there was no way on earth I could not do without this thing. So yeah, it's a funny, and now I'm very glad. And I do not like the way they just like dump. Oh, we've done legal, we've done accounting. I don't like the way they dump that out, like bombs. But I was very intrigued to learn a lot from the CEO about his view, and he's the one going, "I'm warning you now. I'm warning you now, everybody. You're not listening." And you can't say he didn't
over and over again.
Say, yeah, you can't say he didn't say this. This year feels very different to last year. Like, I could have gone 10 years in the land of BIM and I just felt nothing's changed. And now in the world of technology, it's moving at such a, I haven't even tried any of the kind of free LLMs or the kind of Chinese ones. It's a very different world. I'm kind of aware that I'm not really an architect. I'm a mechanical engineer by training, but I love architecture. I love construction. I love the creative collaborative process of it. So when I go and see people, I was with Martha and Sheriff from Foster's for an afternoon, and they communicate to me through the lens of people who do this stuff, and I communicate to them as someone who watches the developments of this stuff, and we somehow meet in terms of I learn from them about their process and their vision, and on the other side, they learn from me about the ins and outs of software companies and all the kind of shenanigans that goes on there, and what's being developed, who's developing what. And so I think, you do a great job of just pulling in all, it's such a great diaspora. There's so many different inputs into this industry. No one's got it all. No one can confess to understanding it because it's multidisciplinary, it's emotive, it's human, it's theoretical. It's that's the thing that's so good about architecture and studying it, is that hopefully on a good architecture course, they're going to give you all sorts of input. I mean, I remember all my friends in Oxford University were architects, and I had BIM skills. So I had CAD skill, I had AutoCAD skills, so I could do modeling in 3D. And their first project was like, here is a space, build something, and in a crit, defend why you built what you built.
Yes. Right.
And I'm like going, oh my God, that's so open. That's such a wow. And here I was trying to write a bloody program in Pascal or do some maths.
Well, you're going to get a different answer from every student in the class, a wildly different answer from every student in the class. Whereas, you're turning in a project that is so prescriptive, you get the same answer 50 different ways, right? Like 50 different versions of the same answer. This is it's an entirely different thing that you're talking about.
And I went and sat in on the crit, and it was horrific to watch.
There were
people ripped
tears.
apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Well, no, there was. I knew that as projects got bigger and people had poured their heart into them, there was more tears to come. But
Yes.
to see, their tutors rip them apart, and then other people, their fellow students rip them apart. It was really it was like, oh my God, this is so much more than I expected. With that liberal kind of freedom of creativity comes an axe of being judged by your peers in front of everyone. It's almost like acting. You have to be an actor. You have to be able to project, and you have to be certain of why you've done something. So yeah,
It's
I've
very
always
vulnerable in that way.
yeah, I think
And people call it the fun job, right? The fun job is designing. It's actually very vulnerable, and you have to be willing to take that criticism.
but it's just it yeah, I think it's good for people's characters, because how often do you have someone coming along and saying that shit, or yeah, you didn't really
Not
think
that
about
often.
that, did you?
Right.
It doesn't happen. Especially in my, you were either right or wrong. Your program worked or it didn't work, or your maths was right or wrong. Well, it's so subjective, and you have to be um, you have to be a single architecture firm on your own, basically, as you're studying. Then you work in groups, and then you have to work with someone who's a bit of a lemon, who's holding you back. And then when I was still at uni, so we were sharing. I was sharing a house with architects. They were up all night, all the time. I mean, the amount of work they had to do was just insane, but they enjoyed it, and that was yeah. One of my friends was much better at drawing people than he was at drawing buildings, and so uh, when he was submitting work, and I was like looking at his drawings, there'd be like a huge face covering like a quarter of the, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I didn't have time to like finish it off. I'm better at drawing people. So there were always more people in.
Right.
And I was just like, oh, how sneaky. Yeah, obviously that didn't fly very far either. But
There's stories of people taking their exam when the exams were done on drawing boards for architecture registration. There is many stories of people covering up unresolved issues on buildings with trees. Yeah. Vegetation to the rescue.
At this time, I was helping one of them submit his model in drawing in CAD, and he was marked down for doing it in CAD.
Yep.
They wanted the artistic element of it. They didn't want the computer drawing of it or the model that was generated, which I kind of felt was very backward. I wasn't writing about CAD at that point, but it was, he was a good friend of mine, Nigel. He was when Release 13 came out, we were still sharing a house in Oxford, and I was writing about CAD, and so I had an early beta of 13, and he modelled the Radcliffe camera, which is in Oxford, this amazing circular library building, part of Oxford University. We worked out that if you modelled 1/12 of it and then arrayed it around, you could end up with a good model of it because it was perfectly symmetrical. It was that point that we just kept crashing on Release 13, and I was constantly ringing up tech support in the States trying to get fixes for what's going on here, what's happening. So yeah, that was always very useful to have architects.
There's the difference between an engineer and an architect. An architect doesn't call support, Martyn. We tried to figure it out all night long, every night.
I made a lifelong friend, actually. I spoke to her so much in Autodesk tech support, and her dad was one of the singers of Jefferson Starship or Jefferson Airplane, is one of those bands that have come through various names or whatever. And so yeah, I still talk to her now on Facebook. She's nothing to do with it, but yeah, it was just one of those things where we were trying to use something in anger and couldn't believe that it just kept failing.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah.
This has been a great conversation. I want to thank the audience for hanging out till the end here, for all the stories. I love all the stories, and it's great to catch up with you. And I wish you all the best with next build and next dev coming up in May. We'll put links to that so people could go in the show notes for this episode.
You can watch next build online. Both streams will be videoed and live streams, and if you obviously are going to be 5 hours behind, forward 9 hours, whatever, I think you can just go in and scroll it backwards and forwards. But within 1 or 2 weeks, they'll be available on nxtaec.com, which is where we store everything post-show. Yeah,
and you can watch last year's and the year before that there as well. Martyn, that's been a great, super fun. Thanks so much.
Cheers, Evan. Always good. Thank you.